here. Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, can we have one of our students, or both, please start?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming. It's nice to see everyone. We're going to have a roll call next. And I will ask Mr. Gorski to preside over the roll call.
Thank you. Ms. Belko.
Here.
Ms. Bierman.
Here.
Mr. Chiarella. Mr. Nicotinsky.
Here.
Mr. Peluri.
I'm here.
Mr. Rutsky.
May I say, Mr. Rutsky is at the concert, and he informed me that he will be here as soon as that has finished. So,
Thank you.
Priorities.
Ms. Siegel.
Here.
Ms. Skirby.
Here.
Mr. Tefano.
Here.
Madam President,
I am here.
you have a quorum present this evening. In accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law, the Monroe Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published. An electronic notice provided by having the date, time, and place thereof posted December 10th, 2021 at all schools on the district website at https://www.monroe.k12.nj.us, the Home News Tribune, the Cranberry Press, and filed with the clerk of the municipality.
Thank you, Mr. Gorski. Next order of business is approval of the minutes. We have two on the agenda. May I ask for a motion to approve the public minutes of November 17th, 2021?
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Tefano, seconded by Ms. Bierman. On that one, do we have any additions, corrections, deletions? Seeing none, may I have all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Recusals or abstentions? Mr. Gorski, would you say that motion has passed?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, next one. Revised draft of the closed session minutes of 11/17/2021. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Mr. Tefano, second by
Second.
Mr. Pelori. Any additions, corrections, deletions? Anyone? Okay, seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Recusals or abstentions? Seeing none, I believe that has passed as well,
Yes,
sir.
ma'am.
Okay, next agenda. The student board members. I will start with Samara Jane. Good evening, Ms. Jane. Thank you for being here, and go right ahead.
Hi. So this month at Brookside, fourth grade students participated in a colonial carousel day in which teachers and students dressed as colonists and traveled throughout the fourth grade classes to learn about the games, trades, and clothing of the time period. Third grade students participated in a Thanksgiving carousel activity where they learned about the history of Thanksgiving. In media, students created positive messages of gratitude and thanks to friends, family members, and teachers and staff members that were displayed quilt style on a Brookside thankful wall across from the media center. The Brookside Student Council, along with a cohort of staff members, are mobilizing this month to gather food, clothing, and gifts for families in need as the holidays approach. At the middle school this month, on November 23rd, they held the first career cafe through the middle school career grant they were awarded. Sixth graders who showed interest in the medical sciences were invited to a Zoom meeting with Miss Katie Higgins, Mr. Higgins' daughter, so she could speak with them about what life is like as a third-year veterinary student at the University of Pennsylvania, as well as how she's prepped to get where she is beginning in middle school. These career cafes will continue monthly at MTMS, covering different career paths based on student interests. December 14th, the sixth grade band concert was held. December 13th through the 17th, the middle school is participating in Spirit Week, when every day involves a different activity for students and staff to participate in. At the high school, tonight actually is the chorus concert in the PAC. Next Wednesday at Bovine Burgers in Jamesburg, there is a Math Honor Society fundraiser. The Robotics Club is also holding a Krispy Kreme fundraiser until December 22nd. And the DECA and FBLA testing took place this week for students to compete in January.
Okay, thank you. Anything personal or from the students you'd like to share with us?
No, I haven't heard anything from the students. I think that we're all just really excited for winter break and next
For winter
year.
break? Good. All right, thank you very much. Next, we have Shivank Latapali. How am I doing on your last name?
You got it pretty spot on. It's Latupali.
I'm sorry?
Latupali.
Latupali.
Yeah.
Okay, don't be afraid to correct us. I think we'd all like to pronounce each one of our names correctly. Thank
Okay,
you.
Sounds good.
Okay.
During the past week, all Barkley Brook students participated in an Hour of Code, which is a global initiative to promote computer science awareness in students all over the world. Their school librarian worked with classroom teachers to provide students with the opportunity to engage in an hour of coding activities that promoted logic, analytical thinking, and even problem solving. Students truly enjoyed learning to code and are encouraged to continue to explore coding beyond this experience. At Oak Tree, November ended with a very successful food drive, more food than they have ever collected in the past to help those in need and kick off the holidays. They're in the middle of their holiday gift drive right now, and both staff and students are participating. Other events happen, including the Hour of Code, even for grade 3 parents and students. The 10 Days of Oak Tree is happening right now, which includes Secret Snowman, Holiday Meditation, Cookie, and Hot Chocolate Days. Ending with their annual holiday breakfast for staff, students will also join in by participating in their Flannel Day, Ugly Holiday Outfit Day, and Cozy Holiday Socks Day. The winners of their holiday door decorating contest will be announced on December 22nd. Falcon Leadership Award winners continue to be announced each month, with families able to zoom in to see the ceremony. One student from each grade is recognized by being outstanding to Oak Tree citizens. At Applegard, their students are doing really well and looking forward to winter break, like we all are. Some things that are going on at Applegard is that they have a wonderful response to the gift drive this year. They had a PJ Day fundraiser to supplement the gift drive, and they raised over $370 for their families. And the live band and chorus concert was at Thursday the 14th, yesterday, and their principal book club met yesterday evening to discuss the month's book. At Mill Lake, for the Think Pink fundraiser, they raised $1,102 towards breast cancer research. The Replenish Food Drive ran between November 15th through November 24th. The Grateful Falcon was a campaign where students and community members participated in creating a feather where they started, what they were thankful for, and together they created a Mill Lake turkey that's presented in their building. The Student Council have also worked for the Toys for Tots that will be running from November 29th all the way towards December 20th. So far, they have collected 636 toys.
Wow, that's wonderful. Did you want to elaborate on all that volunteerism and everything? It's just so generous of our students, their time, the teachers and staff, and of course the parents, I'm sure, are involved. But to hear all of the different, across the board, across the district, the efforts of the students to, I always get emotional about that we take care of those in our community, and they're so good about it. Anything to add?
For sure. I mean, just getting all this information from all the principals, it's wonderful, teaching kids from a young age to be raising money and raising awareness. And I think when you're teaching it in elementary school, it just carries on to middle school, high school, and throughout the rest of your life. So I think that Monroe is doing a very good job in terms of implementing those ideas into young children and sparking their ignition and their imagination so that, they can have drive to do anything and really be conveyed with kindness.
And they're having fun, they're
Exactly.
enthusiastic. Great. I thank you very much for your report. Thank you very much. Okay. Parents and students should be proud of themselves. Teachers, thank you also for shepherding them into kindness and doing things for the community. We all benefit, and certainly as our children grow and sometimes as our adults get more mature, we find the graciousness in helping others. So thank you to everyone. All right. Let's see. We've done all that. I think the next order of business will be presentations. We have 3 of our current board members are moving on, and we would like to thank them for their service. So if I may have Andy Polari, Rupa Siegel, and Peter Tufano, if we can come up to the front. And you guys, too. Sure. Yeah. Dr. Lehman? Yep, up to that way. Come on, Andy. Three of you will stand there. I just want to read this and then get together. I'm going to read what I had to say and also what's on the plaque, so bear with me. The plaques are in recognition and gratitude for your efforts and service on the Monroe Township Board of Education. We present you with this humble reminder of the contributions to the district staff, most important to the students of Monroe and to the community. Thank you on behalf of the Board of Education. I'm going to read one of these. It's the same on each plaque. In sincere appreciation for dedicated service to the students, schools of Monroe Township while serving as a board member of the Monroe Township Board of Education, for Peter Tufano, 2019 to 2021, to Rupa Siegel, 2019 to 2021, and Andy Polari also, 2019 to 2021. Thank you very much.
I like you better without it.
Yes, sure. I'm sorry, Mike.
Madam President, thank you very much for that.
Let me just let you know, if the board members who just received their plaques would like to say something, I'm going to open that up. Mr. Polari, go ahead.
Madam President and the members of the Board of Ed and the residents, I want to thank the residents of Monroe for giving me the opportunity to serve on the Board of Education for the past 3 years. And certainly I learned a lot from the administration, the staff, and certainly from some of the board members. As I reflect on the past 3 years, the first year I was called into the principal's office very often because I was told that I needed to follow the policies and procedures. It was a little disheartening for me as things took too long for things to happen in the Board of Education. The second year I was able to do a couple of things by bringing for the first time, the Sitting Commissioner of Education and lined up the legislators to come and talk to our residents, but unfortunately that did not pan out. As you all know, the third year, my involvement has been minimum, but I did whatever I can to make sure that the referendum would pass. We hosted events, we pushed for the referendum to pass, but unfortunately that didn't happen. I learned a lot in the past 3 years. I spoke my mind, questioned when I needed to, and even if it meant that I was going to be attacked personally, I learned that you're more powerful from that desk than here. That's one of the reasons why I decided not to run. I commend our district staff and the board members who dedicated their time for betterment of our district. I will continue to do what I can to assist the district, as the most powerful gift one can give is the gift of education. As a token of appreciation for the past 3 years, I'm donating 62 reclining office chairs, 24 bookshelves, and a few file cabinets, and 3 computers, which you'll have, Mike, by tomorrow, and 7 to 10 more in a couple of days. So I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to serve. I look forward to continuing to serve in a different capacity at the Board of Education. Thank you.
Thank you. Rupert, did you want to say something?
Yes, I would. Good if I get my hearing off. It's hooked on my
do it this way. So thank you, Michelle, for giving me the opportunity to speak for a moment. So many thoughts going through my mind, and I recently bumped into a teacher, and she summed it up pretty well. But she said, it kind of feels like you're graduating from the school district this year, which, in all honesty, it really does feel that way, since I've been volunteering through the community for about 12 years here. One of my main focuses and reasons why I ran for Board of Ed was to enhance and support academic excellence and student achievement. I was struggling a little bit tonight on what I wanted to say, and my son said to me, "What do you love most about being on the Board of Ed, and what makes you smile?" So I thought about it a little bit, and a couple things that make me smile is when I talk to other board colleagues around the state, and we talk about curriculum. I take pride in what we have in our district. We are miles ahead of other districts with course offerings. We provide opportunities for our students to grow and be successful in life. It's so impressive to me to see the foundations that we have set years ago and watch how far we've come. So kudos to Dr. Lehman and our district supervisors and Dr. Alvik. She may not be here, but curriculum is part of her legacy. It brings a smile to my face when I talk to recent college students who've graduated, and they tell me how college was easy, high school was so much harder. I said, well, then we did what we were supposed to do. Or I'm grateful for being able to take AP courses, my credits transferred, and now I can do a double major. I had some of the best teachers, and I still keep in touch with them. My last thing was when I was recently at the Unified Fall Festival, and the Special Olympics director is raving to me about how wonderful our program is, and she uses our school district as a template for other districts to follow. So those are some of the great things that we do as board members, and hopefully we all feel those impacts. So it has been my pleasure and honor to serve as a board member, to be a voice for the students. I do want to take a few minutes to thank some very important people to me. First, school boards and Marianne Friedman. She's a tremendous resource as our field rep. My board mentors who I've watched over the years and who have guided me, Kathy Koloponowicz, Doug Poi, and Steve Ryback, for all your guidance and support. And the school district staff, it has been a great experience to collaborate with you as a parent over the years, serving and volunteering in the PTOs and PTAs, and now as a board member. A special thank you to Mr. Gorski, a true pillar of our school district. As someone who used to manage budgets, it is impressive how you just make things work with minimal impacts to our students and staff. It has been a true honor to work with you, and I thank you for all the education on understanding school funding, state aid, everything that's come with that. To the students, keep taking every opportunity that comes your way, and I look forward to working with you as community members. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tufano, would you care to say something?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the taxpayers of Monroe for giving me the opportunity to serve on this board. And I don't know exactly when, but I'll be back. I know that may upset some people, but don't vote for me. Anyway, again, thank everyone who helped me along the way, and some of you who didn't. I appreciate that too, because it made me stronger and it makes me want to do it again.
Love you, Pete.
Thank you. I am a little emotional because this is not something I ever thought I'd do in my life, and now that I've done it, I'm pretty sad that I'm not going to be doing it this year. To everybody who helped me, I really appreciate it, and to the new board, I wish you a lot of luck. This board seems to bring out the best in a lot of people, and it really brings out the worst in a lot of people. I learned that lesson this 3 years. But anyway, thank you for giving me the opportunity, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Tufano. All right. And we will be welcoming our new board members in January, so I'll speak to that in a few minutes. The next order of business is our committee reports. So who would like to begin? Ms. Gerby, would you care to? And which one are you going to say first?
Yes, I'll start with policy.
Okay?
So the policy committee met, we discussed some revisions and some thoughts with changing the HIB policy. The committee is going to continue to discuss that at our upcoming meeting next month. with some suggestions from the administration. We also have a few policies that we had discussed previously on the agenda for second read tonight, and a few mandated policies from Strauss Esme for a first read tonight. So that's policy. Does anybody have any questions with that? No? And then community engagement and communication. We discussed the advertising program. We are almost ready to go out with the advertisement. We are going to, the committee is, wants to move forward with the inner fence project first. It's going to be 3 separate projects so that we can stay under the threshold. That the inner circle, the inner fence along the football field would be the first, with possible, I think it would be $1,000 per fencing sign. And that would be our first project that we're hoping to move forward with for the spring. We also discussed the communication survey. We're going to resend that out, and we are going to, Ms. Arminio is going to speak to the township about sending it out community-wide as well. And then in February, we will take the results and discuss that and where we could make some changes to increase communication throughout our district. And the last thing we talked about was in sending a letter to invite our legislators to come to a meeting to discuss fair funding. And Michelle, if you wanted to discuss the letter that we talked about writing.
Okay. In conjunction with the committee and Chairperson Skirby, we know we've had resolutions that this board has passed to send a letter inviting the state legislators, and we are going to go ahead and do that. We've picked 2 tentative days as an invite to give them an opportunity to have 1 or 2 days. We're going to put the letter and invite them for February 9th at about 8 p.m. We're going to keep it a 2-hour meeting, or February 23rd, we're going to give them a choice, at 7 o'clock. Also, we're going to try to keep it a 2-hour meeting. It will be a special meeting, so it will be open to the public, and we are going to try to talk about now, Senator Greenstein has a bill out, I don't know how far it's gone in the legislature, about a task force regarding funding. So we're going to try to get her to explain to us what that means, maybe get one of us or from the community on that task force so we can talk about our need for funding. So her task force is about reviewing the formula for fair funding. The next thing we'd like her to talk about, of course, is impact fees. We keep hearing that it's illegal. Well, it's only illegal to ask for impact fees because the legislature hasn't sought fit to change that. So we're going to ask her to address that. And also just the normal fair funding questions that we have overall. So Ms. Skirby and I will put our signatures to it. Ms. Skirby, as the chair of that committee, sort of making the invitation, and I will sign it as well. So we're going to have that out, hopefully, by the end of the week. Okay, so it's going to happen. We have those 2 dates, and we'll do that. Thanks, Ms. Skirby.
Yep, and that concludes my committee report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Skirby?
Madam President.
Yes, sir.
I think this year, hoping that the COVID impact is not as bad as it was last year, we're poised to get another somewhere between $1 million or so. Having said that, I strongly urge the board members, I'll certainly participate in it, is to go give a testimony in the Senate and Assembly budget hearings. It always helps to stay in front of them from time to time. This is the only opportunity we really get to stay in front of them and ask for what we need to ask.
Right. I think we've done that as a board and as a community on a regular basis, so hopefully we'll continue to do that, and those of us who could take off from our jobs, hopefully we'll be present, but we'll work on that as well. Anyone else? Do you have a question for Ms. Skirby?
No,
You want
no.
to do your
My
committee?
committee report.
Okay, please. Go ahead.
This past Monday, we had a BG&T meeting. First item on the agenda was SSP Architects present the facilities assessment report for Applegarth School. Marcus Rezanow of SSP Architects presented a PowerPoint presentation of their results and findings in the Facilities Assessment Report for Applegate School. The committee discussed options of renewing and adding to the school versus constructing an entirely new school. The committee will further this discussion with the full board. The second item on the agenda was the demographic study. Administration represented demographic study proposals from 3 professionals previously submitted at the July 2021 BG&T committee meeting. The committee is recommending proceeding with Haber Associates and will present this recommendation at the upcoming board meeting. The third item on the agenda was the USDA Food Service Equipment Grants. Cindy Sue Schaller provided an overview of 3 grants that she recommends pursuing for new food service equipment at the schools. The committee was supportive of her efforts in this regard and are authorizing the proceeding. Number 4, POS equipment and software upgrade. Cindy Sue Schaller gave a full review of the equipment and software upgrade needs, and the committee indicated that they would support this endeavor. Mr. Gorski confirmed that the cafeteria fund could be utilized to pay for this equipment. This matter will be presented at the upcoming board meeting tonight. Number 5 was the Monroe Township landfill near Woodland School. The board president had directed Ms. Chanley and administration to contact township officials for information and documentation pertaining to the landfill near Woodland School. The township directed administration to 2 special web links, one of the township and one of the NJDEP, which contained all related test reports, correspondence, etc., pertaining to this matter. The task was completed as directed. The committee requested that Mrs. Chanley and Mr. Tague personally walk the school grounds to see if we can locate or identify any hazardous waste containers or similar items of concern and report out as appropriate. That concludes it.
Any questions for Mr. Tufano?
Mr.
Yes.
Tufano, just to
Wait, wait.
I'm sorry.
Ms. Siegel?
Just one question for the demographer report. I know we had a couple of them. Is there a particular reason why we chose Ross Haber over the other demographers?
Well, we didn't
From the
choose
committee?
it yet. It's a
Oh, okay.
recommendation.
Okay, yeah, the recommendation.
Right. Mr.
'Cause-
Tufano, you can explain.
Yeah, we recommend him for we didn't actually recommend him yet, but one of the reasons why we discussed picking him is he was going to be the person who can give us the fastest results, because time is definitely of the essence here, and he was the lowest priced. And also, we were assured by Mr. Gorski and Ms. Chanley that they would oversee this process and catch any errors that may be made by him, and ensure us proper, demographer's report, basically.
Mr.
Just an update, not an update, actually, clarification. The USDA is actually going to be paying for the equipment that we're talking about for the
Yes.
lunch. While we put up the initial money, it's
Correct.
going to be reimbursed in its entirety.
Correct. We're just laying out the money and then we'll be reimbursed by the USDA, correct?
Madam President?
Yes, Mr. Gorski, go ahead.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification, there's 2 agenda items on pertaining to the food service program tonight. The first is the grants from the USDA that will pay for 5 schools' equipment upgrades as recommended by Ms. Schaller. The second one is a district expense to upgrade the POS system, point of sale systems and related software. That will be a district expense fully.
But that will come out of the food services?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that's a budgetary item that we actually utilize the food services intake and cash. Okay.
Correct.
To be clear, yep. Chris, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, just one other thing about the demographic study that we were discussing. One of the other things that was mentioned by the administration was that Ross Haber has the experience with working with our township officials, and he would be probably the one who would be most best suited to get what they needed from the township, having those relationships and who to contact, and having done that prior. And it was discussed and asked of the administration of our facilities director if there was any concern with using any of the demographers that put in a proposal, if there were any concerns with any of them. And the administration and our facilities director said there was no concern with anybody that they had brought to us with the proposal, and they would be comfortable and confident working with any of them. So I think that's something that should be mentioned.
Thank you. Mr. Tufano, of the three, thank you, Ms. Skirby, of the three, all three had an additional stipulation or service that may Mr. Gorski just go through that?
Absolutely.
Okay, go ahead.
We could also, if you wish, Mr. Tufano, I'll make the motion now and recommendation to the board, but I want to be clear, this is, the board's choice of demographer with Ross Haber. But in his proposal, he had an enrollment projection fee of $4,500, GIS mapping of $2,500, and an additional consideration for the district to analyze attendance zones, which is also known as redistricting, an analysis for that. As Dr. Alvick has said previously, anytime you do a bond referendum, it always coincides with the redistricting because inherently it affects the attendance zones. So does the Board of Education wish to have the attendance zone charge of $3,500 included in the reso?
Madam
I have a question.
If you choose not to, you can always do a resolution at a later time.
Right.
To remove it.
Madam President,
Yes.
We weren't
Mr.
informed.
Pillai.
the township maintains the GIS maps of where the new construction is going on. In my honest opinion, I think it's going to be redundant to see have another GIS be done on top of that. So if it saves $3,500 for the school district, I suggest explore what's available in the school, in the township first.
Mr. Tufano, perhaps
Well,
going forward, we should, go ahead. I'm
I
sorry.
think that what Mr. Gorski said about making it a later resolution, I think that should be discussed at the next BG&T,
Right.
and then you can decide that afterwards.
Okay.
I think that's the smartest thing to do.
Anyone else? Okay, did you want to do that resolution now,
Yeah,
sir?
you can read
Okay,
that.
Mr. Gorski, please.
It is recommended to the members of the Monroe Township Board of Education to authorize and approve the firm of Ross Haber and Associates to provide a demographic study for the school district based on ASSA enrollment information from October 15th, 2021, for the fee delineated in the proposal, which is enrollment projections 4,500 and GIS mapping 2,500. Understanding Mr. Pluri's concern brought up, if the GIS mapping can be excluded, administration will pass on that option, but I would recommend the board approve it in the event that it cannot. We will pass then on the redistricting charge of $3,500, dealing with the attendance zones, and consider that at a later time. Just need a first and a second.
First,
Mr. Tufano, can we amend that resolution to include review of the affordable housing and the build-out? We have some indication that there are going to be approximately 4,378,
That was the.
approximately 4,300, the 4,378 or 79 new residential units under our affordable housing obligation.
yes, I think all growth of this township should be included in that,
Can we
yes.
put that, can we
Absolutely.
amend the resolution to say that we expect that he consider that information?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And
I have a question about that. Is that going to hold up the length of how long it's going to take this demographer to get us this report? Because I
No.
mean, we can't build for schools, we can't build schools for students that aren't here yet. So I get what you're going, but I don't want to delay getting this
Yeah, if
demographer's
it does-
report
yeah,
any longer. We need to get the demographer's report.
I thought we had discussed that they are giving us, because of the growth of the township, we were given an extension of how long we can plan for.
I believe the extension has to do with the report projections itself. Instead of 5 years, include a 10-year projection
Right.
and a 5-year, which
That's
we've
what I
done in the
remember
past.
hearing,
Yeah,
yes.
that is customary and will be included in the report again.
So it's a 10-year build-out, not 5.
If that's the will of the board, I'll remove, my request for addendum. Go ahead,
Do we
Karen.
have an expectation of what the delivery of the report would be? Was this the one that was going to come in January?
Yes.
If I may, Mr. Tufano, address Ms. Belko's
Yeah,
question.
absolutely.
I just think that number is pretty much set by our obligation, so to include that, he doesn't have to go very far, we just have to get a verification from the town, which we do, it's on the township website, and he just needs to include that information in his review. It's not anything that has to be extrapolated new. It is a recommendation, we just have to verify that with the town. On Mr. Remsa, I think it was 2016, had put out a plan, and I just want to verify that it's approximately 4,400 units overall. It's 850 units of affordable housing obligation, but in order to reach that obligation, the builders want to build market rate. So adding the market rate and the affordable housing obligation comes to about 4,400 units, give or take, because they get zoning board and planning board approval for additional things sometimes.
Madam President?
Go ahead.
I would just like to say, the last time Mr. Haber did a enrollment projection for the district, he did work extensively with the Township Business Administrator and other officials to make sure that all of that low-income housing information and the settlement-specific effects on the report were included. And I think that's inherent in the enrollment projection itself.
Okay.
My point is, I don't know if that has to be an addendum to it, because it's an expectation, and certainly you will review the draft and be part of the process so that all of your concerns are addressed.
Well, then I can eliminate the addendum, and we'll just move forward with the resolution, with the understanding that that will be part and parcel of it. Okay, thank you.
Madam, who seconded the resolution?
I think, was it Karen?
I didn't second, but I have one more.
Karen has one more question before we,
So I know there was a little bit of public outcry over the suggestion of Ross Haber after we've all, many of us anyway, have used his name in vain over the last few years based on prior experience. I feel like we should table the motion until after a public forum and give the residents a chance to chime in on this, just so that we hear what there is to say before we put it through.
okay.
I'm in support of, I respect the committee, and I watched the BG&T meeting after it was posted, and I was converted from watching that meeting that the discussion was fair, and that all three were weighed
Okay.
equally,
Okay.
and I don't have.
There's a
any issue
motion
with
to
it.
table, so that takes precedent. We have to vote on that,
Do we have a second?
Second.
Karen? And,
And just to be
Katie.
clear, it's just a
Yep.
table after the first.
fine,
public forum.
that's reasonable. Shall we have a roll call, Mr.?
Yes, ma'am. Motion to table resolution for authorization for Ross Haber demographic study. Ms. Belko?
Yes.
Ms. Bierman?
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Pelori?
Yes.
Mr. Rutsky's still not here. Ms. Siegel?
Yes.
Ms. Skirby?
Yes.
Mr. Tufano?
Yes.
Madam President?
Yes.
Motion to table passes.
Okay, so we'll hold off on that. We're going to have, finish our committee meetings, and then we'll go into public forum. Okay, who's next, please?
I'll do curriculum.
Thank you, Ms. Belko.
Curriculum Committee met on Wednesday, December 8th at 6 PM. We had several agenda items. They were, first one was about art fundamentals, which was previously known as Unified Visual Arts. The course and the course direction for the unified classes in the district is changing to be inclusive classes for all students to be able to participate in the classes. And the art fundamentals class is, it's part of the Applied Arts and Career Technology, and it's going to be part of elective offerings for the students in the district, and it's basic arts, all art mediums, all different art projects that they're going to do and be able to afford the students. And again, this is formally known as, it's going to be a peer-to-peer kind of thing, so the students, no matter what students you are, you'll be paired with somebody and you'll be modeling behavior so that everyone can get the best experience that they possibly can. They'll be using 2D and 3D things. There will be some components of graphic design, and it will include individualized goals for those students that require them, as well as a complete inclusive environment. So if someone just wants to learn something about art, they can take this art fundamentals class, and it will be open to all. So that was the first thing presented to us. The second thing was the ESL bilingual 3-year plan. Dr. Roselle pointed out that we have a very interesting presentation she gave us about the different different levels of language that we have in the township for English language learners. So there are over 20 different languages that are spoken in town. Largest language is, with the largest number of students, is 58. Then we have some other different ones, and pardon me if I mispronounce them, but there's Gujarati, Telugu, and Arabic are also up there, high numbers of those languages. And we have a 3-year plan coming our way with how we're going to manage those students and how we have to follow the regulations from the state to be able to transition these students to full classes and including all of the English language learning skills and, I can't remember the word she used, to be able, so that the teachers in the classes can also help include all of those kinds of things. There's also, the program includes identifying those students, giving them access, giving them they need a certain score to be able to exit the program. There's a parent group to allow for association, allow for discussion and help with doing those things. There'll be a 2-year monitoring piece of the program to review the grades. And so every 3 years, the district serving at least one English language learner must complete a thorough evaluation and report. Due to COVID, our reports have been delayed. We were supposed to do one in 2019. Well, COVID hit. We were supposed to do one in 2020, COVID. So COVID has been a bit of a stickler for everything. So this year's report is due on February 28th, 2022, according to this document. But as you know, COVID could make things change. So that was our report there. Dr. Lehman, did I catch everything? Yes. Okay. And then the third presentation to us was a very nice presentation about the different career academies at the high school. And I didn't get a copy of that one, but it was presenting some of the different ones. And Dr. Lehman, can I rely on you to just give us the different academies that she presented the other night? I'm sorry.
So in general, there's a STEM academy and a business academy, and they each have kind of sub-programs within them. So I think that's the briefest summary we can do from there.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was quite comprehensive. So if you want to really know about some of the different academies that they're working on and the participation that they're getting, that one of the things I found was interesting was that they're going to start introducing this for students who come in the 9th grade to be a 4-year cohort in those different academies. And I believe it was Ms. Siegel who said she wished her kids were coming in up through the 8th grade because she would like to see them get involved in that. So it is a 4-year commitment. It is a thing. The one nice thing that I did find out, because I didn't understand it as much, but students are not just them, like the cohort, and that's the only people in the class. There are other children who can take, other students who can take that same class and be with them, but the students that are in the cohort will all be in the same classes through the 4 years. It builds a community. It helps them, when it comes to collaboration and learning those types of networking skills and doing a lot of different things. So we continue to have a very, very robust curriculum going on here in the district. And I was very pleased to be a part of this committee for the last year. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Belko? Very comprehensive, thank you. We have personnel now. Mr. Chiarella isn't here. Is anyone able to? Oh, okay, thank you, Ms. Bierman. You are the co-chair. Ms. Bierman will give us our finance report.
Finance Committee met on December 8th, and the notes are as follows. First item was a review of the attorney fees for the month. We were provided with the invoices, and we did not have any real discussion on that. Next item, Jamesburg tuition liability discussion. We were informed that all the state forms required to calculate the actual June 30th, 2021 per pupil cost by grade level were in process and should be completed by next month's Finance Committee meeting. Mr. Gorski informed the members that these reports will generate an actual total tuition charge for Jamesburg for the year ended 6/30/21. Next, administration will compare the actual total charge to the amount paid through the budget, and the expected overpayment will be applied toward the tuition indebtedness. Next up was an update on the 22-23 budget. We were provided an update, including that administration has received a preliminary budget for all 8 schools, technology and special education. The next step is to consolidate the budgets into a format following the NJ DOE chart of accounts, which Mr. Gorski will be doing over the winter break. Much more will be presented on this topic at future committee meetings. Next up was an audit update. Mr. Gorski informed the committee members that he spoke with Kimberly Kelly, CPA of HFA, to determine the anticipated release date of state's figures required under GASB 75 for post-employment health and pension benefits. Ms. Kelly indicated that the figures were expected in late December or early January, and that HFA will need 2 weeks to incorporate the figures into footnotes and go through the firm's quality review. The audit deadline is February 5th, 2022. Next up, Mr. Gorski announced a NJSDA and NJDOE $75 million grant for emergent and capital maintenance needs. He indicated that Monroe's share of this grant is $166,924, and that the district will identify an appropriate project to use this grant money towards soon. Next, we were updated on the ARP ESSER grant and indicated that the following amounts have been awarded. So we have for ESSER, $1,036,389. Accelerated Learning Coaching and Educator Support Grant, $550,524. Evidence-Based Summer Learning and Enrichment Activities Grant, $40,000. Evidence-Based Comprehensive Beyond the School Day Activities Grant, $40,000. NJTSS Mental Health Support Staffing Grant, $45,000. Dr. Lehman discussed the proposed utilization for compensatory services and/or facility needs. We had a longer discussion on that. I would encourage anyone to watch the video of the committee meeting to get further details there. In essence, and correct me if I have this wrong, we had the $1 million we thought we were spending that now we don't have to spend, so now it gives us the opportunity to spend it elsewhere, so it's a nice pickup for us. The last item was the high school, middle school stadium track and turf replacement project update. Mr. Gorski gave credit to Ms. Arminio for negotiating with Mayor Delina a shared service agreement for the restoration and upgrade of the stadium track and turf field. Mr. Gorski indicated that it is a $1.7 million upgrade to be paid by the township. Mr. Gorski indicated that he and Mr. Tague worked with the architects and board attorney to formally develop the agreement, and the next steps are as follows. December 8th was the advertisement for bid. December 16th is the pre-bid conference, and January 19th will be the bid opening at the board office at 10 a.m. And that concludes the notes.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Bierman? And then before Mr. Nicotinsky talks about personnel, because that is a closed session, the personnel is not open to the public, may I just say, after a year of these committees, I'd like to thank all the chair people who really presided over these committees with great effort and understanding and an attempts to do the best for the community. So I thank you all. I thank the members who participated. And I would just like to mention, this is sort of a pat on the back for the community, but this board has put out the videos, and it's live streamed, but it's also on the website, the proceedings of these committees. Now, it is not mandated by law. It is something that this committee has decided to do for transparency, to have people understand, and sometimes at our peril, because it is a free discussion between the committee members to recommend to the full board. And sometimes the information or the discussion is misconstrued, and yet this board has deemed it most important for the public to avail itself of this information before we bring it to a meeting like this. So I very rarely try to use myself and say I, but I am very proud that this community has the ability to see our proceedings and see how we work in your best interest, not always in the things that you agree, but this is a very transparent board, and I hope in the future we go to that. And I say again, and I stress this, we cannot please everyone, we cannot always be right, and we make the best decisions, and the fact that it is live streamed and the public will be able to speak on this in the next session means that we do want you to understand what's going on, we do want you to hear what we're saying, and we want to listen to your feedback. And I'm very pleased that I think this is one of the more transparent districts in the state. Most municipalities, most boards don't want the public to be as fully aware as you are. So I thank the board members for putting themselves out and trying to speak as candidly as possible during these meetings, and also sometimes dealing with the feedback. I mean, certainly criticism is important in a democracy, but sometimes disinformation and malicious criticism is not helpful. But for the most part, we are transparent as possible, and we are happy that our public participates in the viewing of it and participates at our meetings. So that is my position from a grateful board president this year. Thank you to all the members and all the committee people and to the public for being aware of what's going on. Mr. Nicotinsky, thank you. If you'll proceed, sir.
In personnel, we just discussed the vacancy list, exit survey, and we went over the sidebar, which is on the agenda for tonight. That's it.
Okay, thank you. I think now, if there are no other questions, we will open the floor to the public. Don't forget, I would ask you to come to the podium, give your name, address. We have 4 minutes. We have our new system that seems to be working well. We will begin, and then if there are several people, and thank you, student members, have a good night. Thank you for being here and for your reports. Go home and study. It's not spring break yet, winter break yet. Please, and if there are more than one person coming to speak, if you could sort of line up, maybe two people, so we don't waste time waiting for people to come up. Thank you.
Prakash Parab, 33 Dana Drive. I thank the board members, for your dedicated service. 3 of the board members will be moving on. Thank them for your dedicated service. We agree or disagree, but it is a selfless job, staying late night, taking decisions. So thank you all, okay, and wish you all the best. And also, congratulations to our acting superintendent. Welcome. And under your guidance, I'm sure you'll do the best. I know you for last several years, and thank you.
Thank you.
And take right decisions. Don't worry about any politics. Now, coming to in the agenda, today, school enrollments are there. So I want to connect that with school enrollment versus what BGT is proposing on the Applegarth expansion. If you look at for last 4 years, for Applegarth, we added only 58 students. But most important is there are about 150 to 203 unhoused students for last 4 years. So it is running at 180% capacity for last 4 years. That's not good. So we have to act on Applegarth. Oak Tree. Why I'm giving out last 4 years? Because the projections are not steep like this. The projections are shallow. So demographic, who is coming, I want to make sure the projections are not very highly and we make big school and it is vacant. Last 4 years, Oak Tree, we added only 28 students, but today we have 719 students, so we have 279 unhoused students, so running at 163% over capacity, not good. Now, I looked at the presentation at the BGT which was given, what is the expansion plan for Apple Garden? And it's very, very good. So I want the BGT, the Board of Education, to act fast, okay? The $44 million project, current building, which is historical building, renovate and expand it. I think it will add about 680 students, and hopefully we can move the third grade also. And $44 million, looking at, I'm not an engineer, looking at is looking very prospective and very good. So I want the board today to think of it and propose it, you know, look at it. And looking at today's figure, we have, in last 4 years, added 114 students throughout the schools. But the projection said we are going to add about 300 students. So the projections are also overlaid most of the time, okay? So my request is, take that into consideration, take some decisions on Apple Garden expansion and renovations today if possible, or in January, so that we have referendum, look at the expansion of the high school, look at the expansion of the middle school, how much it costs, so we can put the referendum together by January, okay? And the next thing is academic, okay, STEM program. That academic, what Dr. Lehman talked about, that presentation is on the district, okay? I want 7th and 8th grade students and parents look at it so that they are prepared what they're going to do in 9th to 12th grade, okay? Good program, very nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Perab. Next, please.
Good evening, Stephen Ryback, 23 Riviera Drive, Monroe.
Jill DeMayo, 48 Linwood Drive.
We're here today to thank and congratulate Rupert Siegel and Andy Pelori for their years of service on the Board of Education. Having been a part of the board, we know how hard they always worked and prepared for meetings. They are serious about education and constantly improving our district so that our students can achieve all their dreams. So thank you, Andy and Rupert, for your work, dedication, research, honesty, and intelligence. You both are continuing a public service, and we're better off because you're out there working for all of us. Congratulations.
Thank you. Next, please.
Brian Fabiano, 19 Patricia Place. I wasn't here last month, so I'll ask that you give me the 4 minutes that I would have had from last. No.
Don't start.
I do want to congratulate Mrs. Chanley on her appointment as acting superintendent here. Not going to say a lot, but she fills a role very similar to others that have filled in this town before with similar qualifications, although she's taken the brunt of political attacks. But what I've seen so far, I trust in what she'll do moving forward. Very easy to come to the podium here and give congratulations to two outgoing members when there are 3. But I wouldn't expect much more from somebody who attacked a board member with, you know, a fictitious petition that really went nowhere. So if that's how you come to the meeting and feel good about yourself, you know, it is what it is. For the 3 outgoing, I would say this. Pete Tefano for being attacked and some of the things he had to endure. I give him credit as an individual to keep coming to these meetings, keeping out in the public, and really, pushing the community forward. Not talking about his election here in town, but he got 9,000 votes. Whether you voted for him or not, he has 9,000 supporters in this community, or at least those numbers would show. For Mrs. Siegel leaving, I think this is an interesting one, something that we haven't had in the past in terms of a board member going on to another elected office in town. Sorry if I think sitting here for 3 years, you've seen the problems that this school district face from the copious amounts of building, and I have high expectations for you in your first meeting, certainly, to start those conversations on the council, because I think it would be remiss if you've sat in here for 3 years and seen our problems and you don't bring any of that up at our town council level. So high expectations, and I wish you well in that field of things. Mr. Pelori spoke a good game for the last 3 years. Not a lot to show from it. Had a lot of relationships at the state level. Didn't see the legislators here very often, that's for sure. And he happened to share a position on the Middlesex County College with the county superintendent, which most people forget to talk about. So I'm surprised he didn't rescind himself on the acting superintendent's vote, but he didn't. So I'd ask a question. My first question is on the agenda.
Mr. Pelori,
Excuse me?
nothing, we're fine. Continue,
In
sir.
terms of taking a donation of used furniture, I know that in other districts, I've actually, through my business, tried to do that, and it's been turned down for potential risk of, if something's not safe, or it fails, or, what are the liabilities to the school district? Can you pause my time?
Can we pause the time? Can we pause the time, please? Mr. Gorski, can you address that? And you can talk about it.
Yes. Mr. Fabiano, as required by board policy, there's a resolution on tonight's agenda to accept the donation that you mentioned for Mr. Pelori. It will be, if the motion is passed tonight, it will be inspected by facilities department members for, number one, safety, cleanliness, utility in the school district, and then it will be brought to our facilities warehouse area. The items were already pre-sorted, and we have a high level that they're relatively new and useful. Otherwise, we wouldn't have bothered with the resolution.
Got it. Next question I have, how many times was the demographer that we spoke about tonight used in the past? Pause my time, please.
I think at least twice, or 3 times.
Mrs. Arminio said twice or 3 times. I think it might even be more than that, because the board was in a routine of getting fairly regular demographic reports. So if I had to hazard an estimate, I would say about 5 or 6 times.
Oh,
Did the previous board have any concerns that were brought forward?
Please stop the time. Administration has had concerns in the past, particularly with the last report. There was something off with his presentation from start to finish. It took a lot of review and corrections by Dr. Alvick and Mr. Tague and Dr. Lehman and myself, but we believe that the final report that went to the board was very polished and clean. So with
Were the expectations in the last report more than the previous reports in terms of the amount of work?
No,
They were identical.
yes,
Expectations were the same.
yes.
That's all I have.
Ms., did you want to talk about, no?
No,
Okay.
go.
You're satisfied with that answer? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Next, please. I'd like to remind the board that when the public has the floor, our response should be only if the president asks for a response, and also that we cannot, in this democracy, the freedom of speech says we cannot oppose anyone's conversation based on their content. So let's just keep that going. Please, sir.
Tim Esser, 2 Allison Court. First and foremost, congratulations to our new superintendent, our acting superintendent, Ms. Chanley.
Can you use your microphone, please?
I've known Ms. Chanley for quite a while now, and she's a very good addition to our school board, our school system, rather, I should say, in that capacity. I also want to congratulate all 3 members of the Board of Ed for your service here. Okay, Peter, you've taken a lot of heat over the years, and I think Brian said it best, 9,000 votes is a lot of support. And one thing I have to admire about Pete is he always did the right thing. He's always done the right thing on this board. whether you liked his answer or not, it's always been the right thing. He's been contested a lot, he's been scorned a lot, but if you got to know this man and what kind of family man he is and how much he really loves the kids, it's not about politics for Pete. It's about people and our children. Mr. Pelori, you know, I would love to see the legislators come in a little more often, okay? Obviously, in your position, I understand you're probably between a rock and a hard place, but it shouldn't get in between our kids. But I thank you for your time and your effort here on the board. Okay, also, you know, Ms. Siegel, well, I can tell you this, right? Let's just say this. I want to congratulate the incoming board members, Katie Fabiano, okay, Kate Ratner, Ghazal Bora. I think what they do here for this Board of Education is they finish the puzzle, okay? They bring complete transparency to this board, okay? And I think they're going to be a fantastic, fantastic addition. With these 3 new members, okay, parents can now breathe easy, okay? There's no special interest, there's nothing intrinsic, okay, that these people want, except the fact what's best for our children and what's best for our parents. Unfortunately, I can't say that for all of our board members. Parents and students need to not worry about a particular board member demanding certain teachers for their children, no more parental interference in sports programs, no more false police reports, no more advocating for those who break ethics violations, no more breaking the hearts of 8th grade children who just want a school dance. No more using her power to withhold Oprah requests to save her tail in a legal battle. I could say this with all honesty. Good riddance, Ms. Siegel. Good riddance.
Next, please.
Michael Oleski, 50 Mayberry Avenue here in Monroe. I just came to the microphone here just to make sure that you maybe consider a few issues, items, I guess, with regard to who you select to do that demographic study. That's, of course, very important with regard to the upcoming referendum. Now, you folks know, and I guess it's no surprise to anyone else, the value of that contract is about $7,500 to $10,000. If our referendum turns out to be, I'm just pulling a number out of the air, about $50 million, that's about 1/100% of the referendum. Meaning, hey, let's make sure we pick the right firm. Now, I guess it looks like there's 3 or 4 questions. I'm just going to rattle them off and just ask that you folks consider them. One is pretty obvious that we asked for price proposals from these 3 different companies based on a spec that was provided by the district. And I guess one very important question is the final product expected from any one of the 3 firms essentially the same? Are we actually comparing apples and apples? Or might it be a matter of difference in quality depending on who we pick, or difference in thoroughness depending on who we pick? I guess one obvious question would be as well, did each firm provide an example of the finished report that we could expect? Obviously, we've got, 5 or 6 examples now from Moss Haber. Did we actually get an example from the 2 other vendors? This next one, very, very important. I know it was mentioned at the BG&T meeting that apparently SSP had recommended Sundance Associates out of Cherry Hill, who's apparently prepared studies of this sort throughout New Jersey and eastern PA. And I was just surprised that there was no discussion with the folks from SSP on why might they have recommended Sundance Associates out of Cherry Hill, particularly since we're fairly happy with the products we've gotten back from SSP. And last but not least, one obvious question I would ask also as an engineer, who's actually going to do the work from each one of those 3 firms? What's their name? What's their background, their resume? Did we get that information? So as we can do a fair evaluation of the 3 vendors? And that's pretty much it. I'm not presupposing any one of those 3 is the right answer. I just want to make sure that those 4 or 5 items that I mentioned, get some consideration. And if they do, obviously you'll come to the right conclusion. Thanks.
Thank you. I think we should address it just a little bit. Mr. Tafano, do you mind?
Not at all.
Okay, so we did have the 3 proposals. Mr. Gorski, can you just read the ones that will be similar, not the extra services, but just so the public. We have read this in the past, but since it started in July, we'll just go over that again briefly. Would you don't mind?
The 2 that are similar, I believe, are Sundance and Ross Haber.
Do you have the prices? I'm sorry, I sort of
Just the prices?
throwing the, well, no, you can say what you want, but give us the numbers of like a similar report, just so
Sure.
the public is aware.
The specifications for the reports are all the same. So the speaker's expectation that the product should be the same, I think, is valid and logical. The fees for Ross Haber and Associates were $4,500 for enrollment projections, $2,500 for GIS mapping. Mr. Haber, as we heard from the 2 speakers ago, has a history with the district, has familiarity with the municipal figures, where to get this information from, was instrumental with developing the Monroe-centric model that was brought to the Department of Education Facilities Department to look at a 10-year projection because of the amount of growth here in the district, as opposed to a standard 5, which would have sold the district a bit short.
Okay, just go to the next one and what their numbers were.
Sundance is the next one, and their fees were, let's see, demographic report, $10,800. Several different fees for other optional analysis, such as GIS, alternate scenarios, PowerPoint presentations cost more, additional services at the rate of $150 an hour. On-site meetings would cost more, and that's all stipulated in the agreements. if
And
you-
the third one? Yeah, please.
Yep. Statistical Forecasting LLC is the third. That's Dr. Richard Grip. And Dr. Grip's fee with that firm is, bear with me a second.
While we're waiting for that, there was also a time frame calculation that went into the recommendation as well. Some of the, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Cost of service, $7,500, $8,000 with remote presentation, $8,700 with in-person presentation. And then there's other fees for redistricting, and a host of other services that are offered here.
Okay.
Ms. Arminio, it's important to note too, Dr. Grip has done work in the district before, as Mr. Tague pointed out to the BGT committee. Russ Haber does. And the gentleman from statistical forecasting is Dr. Grip. Sundance, the proprietor from this firm, also did work with the district, but in a different capacity. He did a public relations service when we did a prior bond referendum and helped market the initiative by getting sign-up sheets with parents and things of that nature.
But he's no longer doing that. He's concentrating now on demographics.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. May we have the next person, please? Thank you.
Everybody hear me? Good evening. Mike Weiner, 9 Sequoia Court. Just wanted to comment on the board president's comments about the openness of the meetings, and I do agree that it is nice to have all the meetings online and be able to watch them. I also want to say you guys should really consider letting people participate remotely to the meetings, whether it's through email, comments, calling in. We had this conversation through email, not to get into the whole thing, but a lot of us want to be involved. We're young parents, we're busy, we have careers, et cetera, and I understand all of you have all that too. As I said, we discussed, the difference is you guys were elected to these positions, You know, you chose to be here every night, no matter how long the meetings are. You know, maybe a little bit more openness to off-agenda topics as well. You know, I mean, it is a lot of the same people that show up every month and speak, so if you have somebody who reaches out who's not a familiar name, I would imagine whatever they have to speak about is probably pretty important to them if they're trying to carve out that time. But I also have to comment, I wasn't going to bring this up honestly, but I have to say, you know, since it's a topic of conversation here tonight, when I first moved into town a few years ago, it was probably like 4 years at this point, it was right around when the board elections had taken place, probably 3 years ago actually. And my wife saw Mr. Tufano's behavior online on Facebook and how he treated people. At that time, I think the first thing she saw was that he nicknamed another resident by a sex toy. I mean, I'm sure you're all aware. I'm sure you've all seen this. You're all aware of this. And she commented on it. She's a teacher. I'm a teacher. She commented on it as a board member.
This is not an
like,
agenda item.
you know, not to treat people this way. And he told her to go back to being a housewife.
It is.
And not to get her panties in a bunch. And then later accused her of texting him and wanting to have an affair. I'm still married to her, so I don't think that was true. So shocking to me to hear people say that he was attacked. I mean, to me, when you behave like that online, to people you don't know who are new residents in the town, it's not surprising you end up in the newspaper. So while we might not have to deal with other things, at least maybe our board members coming in, I wish that they don't end up in the newspaper and embarrass us in that way. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Am I told that, not his wife. These are too much.
Sarah
Mr.
Aziz,
Turno.
3 Lancelot Drive. I would like to thank both Andy Peluri and Rupa Siegel for their outstanding service to our Board of Education. Andy Peluri, as many of you know, is a professional engineer, and his insights on the BG&T committee were just so important and valuable. It's disappointing that you were not chosen to serve this past year, but you would have been amazing. I really appreciate that you represent our town on the Middlesex County Board of Trustees. It's such an important stepping stone for so many of our graduates before they head to a 4-year college. Rupa, your work on the curriculum committee has been fantastic. Both you and Andy have shown such great judgment on your term on the board. You have always supported the district employees that are the most qualified, that work so hard, that go the extra mile, that are willing to work on the holidays in spite of the fact that they're tenured and cannot be reduced in overall compensation. So thank you so much for your intelligence, your wisdom, your hard work, and your good judgment. You'll be sorely missed. But Rupa, I expect you to do great things on our town council. And I am so proud of you to be the first South Asian American who has been elected to serve on our town council. You are a trailblazer and an inspiration to so many of the young girls in our community. And I have great hopes and expectations for you, and I wish you both the best of luck. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you.
I'm referring to the Business Administrator's Report, item F, item F, and I believe that...
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Can you give us your
yes,
name and address?
Doug Boy, 4
Even though we know
Road.
you. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. But item F makes reference to an ESSER grant of $1 million+. Could you just elaborate on what that ESSER grant is all about? Because I couldn't find any interpretation of it. I think the public would appreciate that, particularly because of the amount of money involved. That's under the Business Administrator's Report, item F of that section of the agenda. Thank you.
Madam President?
Yes, please.
It's part of the American Rescue Plan Consolidated Grant, and the school district, as Ms. Bierman pointed out, was awarded $1,036,389 for the ESSER grant, $550,524 for accelerated learning, coaching, and educator support grant, $40,000 for evidence-based summer learning and enrichment activities grant, $40,000 for evidence-based comprehensive beyond the school day activities grant, and $45,000 for NJTSS mental health support staffing grant. And if I could reach out to a colleague, Dr. Lehman, who has done an incredible job working with the principals and the special education director especially to find the most valuable ways to use the money.
Yes, Dr. Lehman, please.
Sure. So the reason this is cycling back up in terms of discussion again is on December 1st, the state, our original plan for that first $1 million was to budget for tuition for our TAPS students that would potentially spend an extra year with us to cover an unplanned, basically unexpected expenditures there. So
Dr. Lehman, explain TAPS.
TAPS is our Transition to Adults program. So it's our 18 to 21-year-old students, and with COVID, they've been given an opportunity, if appropriate, and it's a child study team decision, to spend one extra year with us to proceed with the transition that may have been impacted through COVID. And many of those students also are out-of-district students. So we have some out-of-district students that are outside of that TAPS program. So encompassing that $1 million was tuition over the next 3 years for the students we anticipate needed to do that. On December 1st, we were notified that the state will reimburse us in a different way. So we no longer have to allocate that $1 million anymore to cover those additional year tuition costs. So now we have an opportunity to revisit that $1 million, and one of the things we can do with that is look at some capital projects, and it's up for discussion. We actually haven't had an approval of the initial grant yet, so as soon as we get that approval, we can then go in and start to make an amendment based on what we would intend to do with that.
So let me check my understanding.
Sure.
That $1 million+ that says ESSER, E-S-S-E-R.
Yep.
We are getting that, but the board has yet to decide how it will be spent. Is that correct?
So it's, right now it's earmarked for tuition, but it hasn't been approved yet. But in that process, we got notified, so everything was already submitted. We got notified that what we were planning on spending it on, we don't need to spend it on anymore. So as soon as we get approved, we will now go in and we can choose to amend our initial application and spend it on something else.
Approved from whom?
The state.
Okay.
The state, because this grant is coming from the state.
Okay, the other point is just a point of concern that I would like to raise with the board. I did not observe it tonight, but I have observed it in many past monthly board meetings, that during the committee reports, quite often a motion comes out of one of those reports. The board then discusses it and votes on that motion. I think by doing that, you are precluding citizens of the community who might be interested in what that motion is all about, but were not aware of what that motion was going to be dealt with that night. And I see a problem there. Because if I'm a citizen and I look at the agenda, then I know what the board is going to be discussing that night. I know most of the motions that they will be voting on, and I can, as a citizen, decide, is it worth my while to come to the meeting, not come to the meeting? If I'm going to come to the meeting, the main point would be to express some opinion on it. But with your style of committee reports that you seem to have adopted, using this committee of a whole, or the committee as a whole, when I read the bylaws, the committee as a whole is not allowed to actually take action, deal with any motion. So I found that rather confusing. I just want to bring it to your attention. And I particularly want to alert you to the fact that by allowing a motion to be brought up that night with no prior publicity about the motion, I think is shortchanging the public. Thank you.
I'd like to address that. Actually, quite frankly, Mr. Poi, I think that it has been precedent for the last 8 years that I've been on the board that motions have been brought up, not even discussed in committee. So I'm really not sure, but certainly we can take it under advisement. For the 8 years that I've been on the board, there have been resolutions and motions brought up that weren't even discussed in committee. So as far as I understand, it's precedent that has continued. But however, I take your point, and perhaps we can talk about it in policy. But I know now with the live streaming of the committees, these things have been discussed in committee, and it is likely that most people are familiar with what has been discussed and what has been talked about bringing it to the board. I mean, that's sort of the purpose of the committee. The committees discuss things, and they say, well, we'll bring it to the board as a recommendation. That has been precedent even long before I was on the board. So, but again, we'll take your point and discuss it further.
And that point of the committee having prior discussion and then bringing a motion to the board, I don't have an issue with that. I completely understand that.
Okay.
But in my opinion, if they're going to bring a motion to the board, that should be made part of the agenda, because the committee meetings are held a week in advance of the board meetings. And so there's no reason that would preclude that motion from appearing on the agenda. That's all I'm saying. And it may have happened in the past, it may be a precedent, but being an old guy, and when you think about how things work, you begin to realize, well, there could be a flaw with that process.
Exactly.
And that's all I'm bringing to your attention.
And that is actually what I've said over the years, that just because it's been precedent, it doesn't mean it's correct. So again, we will take that into consideration. We'll discuss it with our attorney in the future, and again, the most important thing is that the public is aware of as much information as we possibly can get out. So thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you.
Next, please.
Hi, good evening, everybody. First of all, thanks for your services.
Can you give us your name and address, sir?
Sorry, Pradeep Melam, 4 Jake Place.
For Jake? Okay.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for your services, Pete, Andy, and Rupa. And I wish you good luck on your future endeavors. Getting right into the point. Are we using any financial accounting software in our business office?
Yes, please.
Yes, we do.
Okay. I hear a comment in the finance committee meeting that we submitted all our accounts to the audit and they are considering it. That means all the expenses and everything is frozen. But I hear that it takes 1 month to calculate per pupil cost for each grade or at each school level. Like from 9 to 12 is one cost, 7 to 9 is one cost, or 6 to 9 is one cost, 6 to 8 is one cost, something like that. Why it takes 1 month? And there was an additional comment. It will take 1 inch thick of A4 size paper to get it done. So if it is a software thing, it should be done pretty quickly. I'm not expecting any answer from this, but that's fine. Second thing, I hear repeatedly a cafeteria fund. I did not see that number in last year comprehensive financial report. So this is another hole in our comprehensive, what we call comprehensive report, which doesn't have it. Any answer? How much we have in the cafeteria fund?
Madam?
Yeah.
To the gentleman's question about the audit and the financial disclosure of cafeteria cash and cafeteria funds, including the balance sheet and liabilities and equity and income and expenses, it's in the proprietary funds section of the comprehensive annual financial report. It's always been in there. It's approximately page 37. Don't hold me to that.
Okay. But how much we have right now, according to last comprehensive report, how much we have amount that in that fund?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Mr. Gorski, was that fund we didn't get a lot of that fund last year because of COVID? Could that be part of the reason why there's no fund reported in that, or?
As we reported to the Finance Committee when the auditors presented the comprehensive annual financial report, there was a lot of federal and passed through to the state stimulus last year that supported the cafeteria program with higher reimbursement rates and full-day, kindergarten eligibility for breakfast program. Forgive me. A breakfast program that had high reimbursement rates from the federal government. And there was additional money that was just sent to the district too to help prop up the fund.
So without knowing how much that has, we are discussing in BGNT and other committee meetings that we can use that fund for the proposed middle school cafeteria or anything that we are going to do. So this I heard in a couple of meetings. One is Finance Committee meeting, one is BGNT committee meeting, but we don't know how much we have in that fund.
Madam?
Go ahead.
Sir, that's your comment that we don't know how much is in the fund. I told you to take a look in the comprehensive annual
No,
financial
but I'm
report.
asking you,
When I'm asked by the board president, do we have $38,000 or similar monies to spend on equipment that's needed in the program? I did a review of cash, and my answer was yes.
okay.
Is this our fund?
Madam, while you're looking,
Yeah.
by the way, the cafeteria fund has limitations on how much cash you can have. It has to be enough to cover 3.5 months' operating expenses. So there's limitations on how much you can hold in there. And in the past, we've had trouble where we've actually had too much cash. And we asked Ms. Mitrasak at the time to look for additional capital expenditures to invest in.
Okay. What are all the applications that we sent from our school district with the data as of October 15th or the business date before October 16th to county and state? I want to list out all the applications or the documents that we sent with this data.
Is that what he's asking?
No.
Okay. What I pulled out apparently is not correct. Sorry, it was the contract renewal food services for the company, so I apologize. I'm trying to get an answer in my documents, but we don't seem to have it.
If you wish to give me a call, Mr. Malam, I'll be happy to go through it's called now Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. They changed the title. Any questions you have, we'll take to.
No,
Mr.
this question
Delahunt.
is not related, my next question is not related with the annual comprehensive financial report. This is like there was a mandatory applications or mandatory data that we need to send compiled data to county and state the business day before October 16th. As of how much strength we have, what are all the financials we have in hand and everything. It's called ASSA or ESSA or some application. And along with that, there are multiple applications that we send to state.
Yes, sir, your question?
My question, list out all the applications or the documents that we sent to the state or county, like ASSA.
Yes, we have those reports. They were
Okay.
submitted timely to the state, yes.
Okay, one is ASSA and anything else that you can?
Yes, one is the ASSA application for state school aid. The other one is the DRTRS, District Report of Transported Resident Students, that calculates all the transportation routes and comes up with an efficiency rating for the district. That's also as of the same time period.
Mhm.
We also have what is known as the school register summary. We also have a debt services report that shows principal and interest that comes up due annually and what is long-term, because the state of New Jersey incorporates that in their overall liabilities on state report.
Okay. So while we are sending the transportation report, every year I see Jamesburg transportation is fixed. Like, and there is no retrofitting of transportation costs. But you guys are retrofitting the per people cost, and then either you are increasing or decreasing the debt they owe us. But the transportation, once you invoice, once they pay, and it's every year it's a fixed amount. It is never retrofitted. Why it is not being retrofitted?
Yes, Madam?
Yes,
The-
but before, we really need to give Mr. Malam an answer. He has graciously come up to the board and asked questions, and I would really like to have definitive answers.
Sure, let's take the last question that he has. I'll be happy to give him a definitive answer. Could you repeat the last question, sir?
We calculate the per people cost,
Yes.
and we retrofit the balance with Jamesburg.
Yes.
Why don't we retrofit the transportation cost
Yes.
every year? Because every year I see the similar number or same number,
Yes.
irrespective of the number of students we are transporting.
Yes, Madam. The similar number that you're seeing is an estimate for Jamesburg tuition that is in addition to.
I'm talking only transportation.
Yes, transportation is budgeted in addition to tuition. And that number stays relatively similar in the budget because the amount of students sent and transported is the same every year. However, that is not what is charged to Jamesburg. That is a budget figure. What is charged to Jamesburg is their actual transportation costs that are based on the number of pupils that we transport on our buses.
Yeah,
It's
but
a
I
very
see the
specific-
invoices, but I see the invoices and payments every month, it's the same. And at the end of the year, I don't see any retrofitting, either plus or minus, whether they owe us or we owe them. It is not reflecting in any of the statements that I see.
Well, stick around for next month, and we're going to, we anticipate showing the
I
tuition calculation.
I analyzed all last
We
4
do it
years'
every year.
statements. I don't see that retrofitting. That's why I'm asking the question.
I can't argue with the gentleman. I said a plethora of times
Okay.
that we
Okay,
presented
but-
at finance and the board meetings, and we're going to do it again next month.
Okay. And there was a discussion about $1.7 million a township partnership work. I would like to know the details, like, is it like the township is paying completely, or the board is paying some of it? Or is it a loan to the board, or is it a grant, or how it is going to work?
Dr. Lehman, do you want to?
The high school and middle school track program.
Oh, the track?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I can answer that one. As is, and I think we can put the agreements online now, because we've we've agreed to it. We are not, the board is spending the money to fix, and we will be fully reimbursed from the township budget. The township seems to be, and I think I gave a resolution that the township passed on last Monday, this Monday, I think it was this Monday. Just so for the public, the resolution from the township, which is available online at the township website, was number R for resolution -12-2021-241. It's a resolution of the Monroe Township Council declaring official intent to reimburse expenditures for project costs from the proceeds of a debt obligation that they will be incurring in connection with the funding of the construction and replacement of the turf field and resurfacing of the track at the Monroe Township High School, Middle School. Under the shared use of facilities, that was the only obligation we have. It says that the project, and to share the use of facilities with the Board of Education of the Township of Monroe pursuant to a shared services agreement. I have a shared services agreement that we can put online, if it's not already online, and I would be happy to, as I read the shared services agreement, and I think our attorneys have read it as well, there is nothing in the shared services that we signed with the township that indicates any reimbursement from us to the township. They're fully funding this through the open space budget. What they're going to do is pass a bond through open space and use the funds from open space to pay the debt service from that bond. Okay? And it's the use of funds, and the board acknowledges that any funds provided by the township will be used for purposes permitted under this agreement and comply with the applicable provision of the local law. There is nothing in the agreement that says we would be reimbursing. This is a joint and shared services. It is coming out of, the taxpayer's budget, it is, but what it's coming out of the right. I mean, we're all paying, we get it. But the point.
I get it, but
the point is that it is not coming out of the educational budget for our students. We are really trying to maintain our instructional and educational budgets to be pure and clear so we can utilize it for the benefit of our children's education.
Sure.
And because this is a recreational facility as well, we felt that it was in the best interest of our student and our academic budget to have a shared services. So I hope that people understand the purpose and intent of it.
Yeah, I understand. And every time I come and ask most of the financial questions is because my son was denied his high school orientation just because
Yes, go ahead.
there is no $2,000 to spend on that particular year in our budget, okay? I just don't want any kid to lose any programs just because of some stupid decisions that we are going to take.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mullen. Next, anyone else? Okay, seeing none, I will just have a voice motion to close the public portion.
Motion.
All good? Okay, thank you. Next is the Assistant Superintendent's report. Dr. Lehman, if you'll grace us with your information, please.
Michelle, the tabled motion.
We have a
should-
tabled motion on the floor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let us do that. The table motion, shall we read the resolution again, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we're good?
With the disclosure that these 3 proposals were provided to the board in July, and they were discussed recently again at the Building Grounds Transportation Committee meeting at length. It is recommended to the members of the Monroe Township Board of Education to authorize and approve Ross Haber and Associates to provide a demographic study for the district based on ASSA enrollment information from October 15th, 2021 for the fees delineated in the proposal. If the district can withhold the GIS service by efficiencies created with working with the township officials, we will not include that part, but it is authorized by the board to do so in the event we cannot.
Second.
Any other discussion? We've already had it, but any other discussion for us? No, okay, we
need a
just
first
have,
and a second, madam.
okay. Well, we have Mr. Tofano and Ms. Bierman.
Ms. Bierman.
Okay, I guess we just need a roll call.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Peluri?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Mr. Rutsky is still not here. Ms. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Tofano?
Yes.
Ms. Belko?
Yes.
Ms. Bierman?
Yes.
Ms. Skirby? Mr. Nicotinsky?
Yes.
Madam President?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you all very much. And next item, again, Dr. Lehman, I keep doing that to you. I keep postponing your statement, sorry.
That's right.
Go ahead.
So this is a brief update. We're in the middle of our winter concert series. As you heard, we have our choral concert tonight here at the high school. Earlier this week, we had a middle school concert. We've had several elementary concerts, and we have some that are going to come up after the holiday as well. So it's important to recognize we've had our fall season for our athletes. We've started our winter season for our athletes, and I think it's important now that we're in person, having in-person performances to congratulate our musicians, our choral performers, all of our band directors, choral directors, everyone involved, all the parents for supporting their students, because we're back in person, we're hearing, we're performing. Interesting tidbit of information, our 6th grade band and choral students, this performance was their first band and choral concert, first time ever performing on stage in front of a large group, even though they started in 4th grade. And that's just the ripple effect of COVID. So, you know, as we typically expect our routines and they know where to sit and everything like that, by the time they get to 6th grade, or 6th grade concert, that was the first time they really had to march up on stage and get in front of everybody. So, you know, we are making steps, approaching normalcy. We certainly have roadblocks and road bumps ahead of us, but just congratulations to everybody this winter season, as well as we're in the home stretch for our winter break. So thank you to everyone, thank you to the staff, thank you to all of our board members, our administrative team. I think we'll all have a few days to catch a breath, and we'll be ready to roll once we get back in January. So that's my report.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Any questions for Dr. Lehman? No? Ms. Chanley, you are on.
Before I ask for, before I proceed with the recommendation for the board approvals, I do want to say that I had a wonderful opportunity. I used the cliche of going on the road with Dr. Lehman and Rashima Zielinski, who did all the work in regards to the preparation for the presentations to our Teachers of the Year, our support personnel, and our additional non-instructional employee award honorees that we were able to go from school to school. It was a wonderful opportunity to see people praised and appreciated by their peers, by parents who may have written in, by students as well. And then I had the pleasure of coming to the high school to meet with approximately 18 students
who I love to talk to because, as you can see from when they present here, they have a lot to say, and they have a lot to offer, and we are in the business of children. So having that opportunity, in addition to all the business of what comes with the administrative responsibilities and budget defenses and B&GT meetings and demographic reports, my week was very nicely culminated with children, which I think is very, very important. And they had a lot to say. They had a lot to say about how the various middle school and high school, and they really had input as to how the teachers were handling the fact of following the rules, following the recommendations, and still making it what it needs to be in our new normal post-COVID. So I can only hope that with the ups and downs, as Dr. Lehman described so beautifully, and the little bumps in the road, I hope that we get a smoother and smoother surface as we continue on and we learn to navigate what is now our true reality for our children. That being said, at this time, it is recommended that the board approve the attached personnel items A through AQ.
Second.
Who moved first?
Mr. Tufano.
Seconded was, Ms. Skirby? Any questions, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Siegel.
Yes.
Mr. Pelori.
Yes.
Mr. Tufano.
Yes.
Ms. Bierman.
Yes.
Ms. Belko.
Yes.
Ms. Skirby.
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky.
Yes.
Madam President.
Yes.
Personnel items A through AQ has passed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gorski. We are honored and saddened when we hear fabulous employees of the district for many, many years who will be going on their own new endeavors. And we have quite a few that have, at this time, decided to enjoy life as they see fit. And I'd like to just wish the best to Ms. Bernadette Chin, who's currently a teacher of special education, who I've had the pleasure of personally working with as her principal at Monroe Township Middle School. I also have had the pleasure of knowing, although I never worked with her personally, Ms. Catherine Simmons, who's a teacher of English language arts at the high school. And we have a retirement of Mr. Steve Normick, who has been our security guard in this district for many years. We wish all of them well on their future endeavors, and they should stay happy and healthy. At this time, it is recommended that the board approve the following board action items A through K.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion, questions, anything? Okay. Seeing none, Mr. Gorski, please, roll call.
Mr. Nicotinsky.
Yes.
Ms. Bierman.
Yes.
Mr. Pelori.
Yes.
Ms. Siegel.
Yes.
Ms. Belko.
Yes.
Ms. Skirby.
Yes.
Mr. Tufano.
Yes.
Madam President.
Yes, thank you.
Board action items A through K is passed.
Thank you, Madam President. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. And I was remiss earlier today to identify the passing of one of our previous board members. I'm sorry, Ms. Skirby, I left you sort of hanging. Would you mind speaking to it now?
Now?
Before we move on, yes.
Sure. Sadly, I was informed by a friend that on Sunday night, Mr. John Leary had passed away.
Oh, wow.
Mr. Leary served as a Board of Education member from 2003 through December 2011. Mr. Leary was 84 years old and lived in Rossmore since 1995. He served our country in the Army and was an electrical engineer for Bell Laboratories in New York for 30 years. He also served on the Middlesex Regional Education Service Commission. To those of us who have been on or following the Board of Education for the last few decades, will remember Mr. Leary and his desire for accurate school projections. He will long be remembered for what many of us call the Leary Report. I want to offer my sincere condolences to Mr. Leary's family and friends. Rest in peace, Mr. Leary. You will not be forgotten for all you did as a Board of Education member to make a difference here in Monroe Township School District.
Thank you. And on behalf of the board, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, anyone else? Okay. The business administrator's report, sir?
Madam Board President and members of the Monroe Township Board of Education, it is recommended that board action items A through L, with the exception of J, be approved by consent roll call.
So moved.
With the exception of J.
Mr. Tufano moved it. Was there a second?
I'll second it.
J was the American Rescue Plan Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief ESSER Program Maintenance of Equity Certification. I spoke with our grant coordinator today who asked that that be placed on the agenda. She felt that it wasn't applicable to Monroe. We will keep an eye on it, but it doesn't appear that it needs an action item tonight, so I pulled it.
So we're removing that from the agenda?
We're removing J, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Everybody get that? Because I didn't. Okay.
A through L with the exception of J.
Okay.
Moved by Mr. Tefano, seconded by Mr. Nicotinsky.
I have a question.
Go ahead. Ms. Belko.
I thought about this after the financial report, so forgive me. Or the BG&T, item G, food service equipment assistant grant submission. So it says here that if approved, the district may be eligible for up to $45,963. When will we know whether we're eligible or not for this?
Madam?
Yes, please.
I believe Ms. Schaller said in a matter of weeks to a month, we'll know. She expected it to be relatively quick, but she did not quantify it. I'm speculating based on our conversations.
Okay, so my follow-up question then has to do with H. Are we planning on spending the $44,274 in total for the H project from the $45,963 from the grant?
Madam?
Yes, please.
The answer is no. These are two separate agenda items. G has its own prescribed equipment recommendation from Ms. Schaller that was discussed at committee. It pertains to 5 schools' needs for equipment that is expected to be fully paid for by the $45,963. H was a presentation at Finance Committee by Ms. Schaller. We have a POS system, that's point of sale system that helps expedite kids checking out of the lunch line. It goes back to 2014. The hardware is failing, and it was strongly recommended to include with that the software web-based component, which will safeguard the sensitive information that was of concern by the members.
Okay, so my follow-up question to that then is, was H part of our budget submission for the 2021-22 school year? Was it a project that was on that list?
Madam?
Yes, please.
The answer is no, because the cafeteria fund is not part of the general fund school budget that the board votes on annually. Which is why Ms. Schaller brought it to the committee for permission instead of just sending up a purchase order.
Does that mean, go ahead, you're going to ask the next question.
My next follow-up question is, and I apologize, I just want to make sure I understand where somebody's coming from. So I pulled up the comprehensive financial report, and if I'm reading this correctly, the food service fund only has $108,254.11 in it. So we're going to take that down by almost 50% to spend this money, and I'm not saying we don't need this here, but I'm just trying to understand where this $44,274 is going to come from if we hadn't budgeted previously and we don't have, and we weren't planning on using the funds from the food service equipment assistance to pay for this.
Yes. The answer is the date of the annual comprehensive financial report is June 30. So you're looking at a finite snapshot of assets, including cash, as of June 30. This proposal was current. So we looked at the current cash availability. It's there. This is not a
Then what is the current fund number?
You know, I hold a lot of numbers to memory, but I can't tell you our current cash balance as of today, but
So
I
you're
will send
asking-
it.
Let's
So-
rephrase that question. What is the average 3-month balance that we're supposed to hold?
I can't answer that either, but what I can tell the board is there are sufficient funds in there to pay for this recommended equipment upgrade.
I'd like to table H until we have an exact number of the funds that are currently in the food services fund for the availability to pay for this.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, we need a roll call on tabling it.
1 second. Seconded by,
Ms. Skirby.
motion to table H. Ms. Skirby.
Yes.
Ms. Bierman.
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Peluri.
No.
Ms. Siegel.
No.
Mr. Tefano.
No.
Ms. Belko.
Yes.
Madam President.
That's a tough one. I'm going to have to make that decision, so, yes,
5 yeas and 3 noes. H has been tabled.
To that, if I may, Ms. Belko, piggyback on what you said on G, the assistance grant submission, if we do not get that, I mean, we're specifically asking for some coolers. If we don't get that grant, we will not be ordering the coolers, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so on G, Ms. Belko, that grant is for, yes, we do have a need for the coolers, but if we don't get the grant, we won't be getting them.
Okay, so then can I ask in the future, if that's what we're doing when we're applying for grants, we're applying for specific items, can we please include that in the item, the line item that we are voting on, so we know what we're voting on? We could have avoided 5 minutes of my questions if it was in here.
Madam, I believe they are in the attachments for this meeting. And further, H was discussed at Finance Committee to its fidelity, and it was recommended by the committee to be put on the agenda. The question about cash
BG&T,
availability
not
was brought up. It was
BG&T, and I don't sit on
beg your
BG&T,
pardon?
but I don't
Cash
see it in
availability
the
was not brought
attachments
up.
either.
Did the notes get sent out?
Okay, well,
I'm not gonna argue about it now.
it's tabled, and we understand that the food assistance equipment, we're gonna go for that grant, and hopefully we'll get that grant, and then we will, that specifically was for coolers for 5 schools. Mr.
Is this tabled motion time sensitive? We have a time sensitivity on this?
It passed, so it's tabled.
I
We'll have to do it
understand
next.
that.
Yeah, we'll
I'm
have
just
to
saying,
do
is
it
it
next
time
month.
sensitive? Is the grant have?
No, it's not the
I mean,
grant one.
The order, does it have to be placed by a certain amount of time, or?
Madam,
Go ahead.
if you wish. or you
Go
can
ahead,
answer
I
the
mean,
gentleman.
go ahead, but it's passed, so it's almost a moot point. But go ahead, finish so people know what's
Okay.
going on.
The equipment was urgently recommended by Ms. Schaller as it is failing. It's requiring reboot, which holds up kids from getting out of the lunch line. Beg your pardon?
I'm curious as to why we're just hearing about it now. If it's failing, it must have been failing for a while. So I'm just curious as to why it wasn't on the budget, but I think that we should not discuss it anymore as we have the motion. It's already passed. If I get an answer to my question for January, I'm happy to
Okay.
move
Since we're
forward.
going into winter break, maybe we're going to get a little bit of a reprieve, and we'll take it up immediately in January. Okay, can we,
I got one question.
yes, sir.
For letter I, is the furniture donated personally by Andy Pelori or by his company?
Madam?
Go ahead, Mr. Gorsuch.
It is donated personally by Mr. Pelori.
Mr. Pelori, is this your company?
It's my company's, but I picked it up on behalf of the township.
You,
6 of one, half a dozen the other.
okay,
whatever. It is the company's, but company would have given it to someone else. I stopped it to bring it to, they already donated quite a bit to the Bridgewater Raritan School
Okay.
District. Yeah.
so you facilitated the
Correct.
furniture to come to Monroe. Okay, thank you. Okay, I think with the exception of H and
J.
J, should we have a roll call, please?
Board action items A through L with the exception of J and H. Moved by Mr. Tefano, seconded by Mr. Nicotinsky. Ms. Belko?
Yes.
Ms. Skirby?
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Pelori?
Abstain on I, yes on everything else.
Abstain on aye, yes on everything else. Thank you. Ms. Siegel?
Yes.
Ms. Bierman?
Yes.
Mr. Tefano?
Yes.
Madam President?
Yes.
Motion passes. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay, I think I am up next. And yes, Board President's report. In my Board President's report, I was going to mention our shared services, field and track repair, but we've discussed that already. I also was going to discuss the letter sending, the invitation to our state assemblyman and senator. That has already been discussed. We would like to, and we're doing that to continue our effort to receive fair funding and due to the, as one of Monroe's, Monroe is one of the fastest growing student enrollment districts in the state, so we really will be pursuing that. I'd like to mention some of the volunteerism, I also briefly mentioned it before, of our students in Monroe. Dr. Prakash Parab was involved in an organization that the students of Monroe, and they were from the smallest elementary school to the high school kids, were gathering food and finances and funds for food banks and all that. And it was just lovely to see that we have such a vibrant community of active students willing to go to great lengths to help our community. I've mentioned that before earlier, so I won't go into that again. But I think maybe, again, this is just a suggestion, not a directive. Perhaps next year we can sort of get all of the voluntary organizations that our students participate in and bring them together as one community, civic group, to sort of exchange ideas and see what they're all doing. But we're very proud of all of the students in Monroe, the diversity of volunteerism, and, during this time of holiday and worrying about our community and taking care of our community, it's lovely to see the children so enthusiastic about helping others. So having said that, I wish everyone a good and happy and safe break, holidays, and still to be cognizant of the COVID-19 virus and that of the Delta and Omicron, and stay safe, stay joyous, and enjoy the holidays. And thank you for participating in this year. We've had a tumultuous year at times, but it is great to see the faces of the community and the participation. So I personally, and I'm sure the board, thanks you very much and wishes you well, and have a good a break. Thank you. Okay. We now have other board business, and I think under the circumstances and to keep a cheery attitude, I would ask the board members to just continue with specific board business and, keep their comments happy and brief. Mr. Tofano.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion, please.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that when a member of the board or district administration meets to discuss official district business with any other elected official in the township or state, a written report of the meeting is provided to the entire board as a means to update them. In the event there is any discussion that results in action to be taken on behalf of the board or any decision to be made that directly impact the school district, the board member is required to bring such a decision or action before the board as a whole for a vote. If such action is not done, the board will be in violation of board policy and subject to an ethics complaint filed on behalf of the board or any other such reprimand that the board sees fit.
You need a second to proceed.
Second.
Anyone like to discuss that?
Isn't that the board policy not to do that? I don't know why we're making a motion on that.
Well, he
Isn't
made
that
a
board
motion.
policy that we cannot independently go and reach legislators on our own and run or make decisions?
Well, that happens all the time, that's why I made a motion.
Well, I don't know how to answer that question. Would you like to talk about the motion and maybe clarify it if it seems appropriate?
Well, much of the motion is really left to the discretion of the board if you think that policy is wise. The only legal comment I have relates to the last part of the motion, which said that if a board member were to engage in a communication with an elected official and not report it to the board would be guilty of an ethics violation because it violates board policy. So I'll just comment on that last piece from a legal standpoint, which is the board violating its own policy is not a violation of the School Ethics Act. Violations of the School Ethics Act are governed by the School Ethics Committee, not violations of your own policy. So unless your policy was simply a recitation of something that's already in the statute, it might be a violation of your policy. It's not an ethical issue. So that last part of the motion is the legal part of the motion. I'm not familiar enough with all of your policies by heart to respond to whether or not there's anything redundant about it. But certainly be happy to respond to any other questions as the board raises them in considering the motion. Thank you, Madam President.
Ms. Bierman?
So when you're saying other elected officials, does it include us?
No, when it has to do with board members meeting with any other elected officials in their official capacity.
So outside of
Correct.
those elected to the board?
Okay, my understanding is that board members meeting with other elected officials or anyone in the capacity of being a member of the board should not be doing so without permission from the president of the board. So now, if you're saying
Well,
it,
it should also be
the president,
the
you're,
board president, or the
Okay.
business administrator, or the superintendent, or the acting superintendent, or nobody should have that discussion without permission from the board, or.
on the board's behalf, you mean? I mean, there are things that
Correct.
go on that are not
No, there should be
necessarily.
nothing discussed that's not 100% transparent to everybody on the board. No private discussions. We've seen in the past, discussions that happen in private, decisions were made in private, that affect the entire school district, and one person should not be in charge of that. I'd rather not name the incidents, but everybody knows when they were and how they occurred.
Can you give an example?
Well, simple example, when the board president changed the election date as a favor to the mayor. We know that occurred, that shouldn't have occurred. When we voted unanimously to have the elected officials to come here to be questioned, a certain board president decided on their own that that wasn't going to happen, after the entire board voted that unanimously. So that should be stricken from this process. It's wrong. It's not how we're supposed to work, and that's why I made this motion before I leave. So this motion would eliminate that, hopefully.
Mr. Gagliardi? Mr. Gagliardi, for those who don't know, is our counsel. So, thank you, sir.
So actually, as I understand the motion, and I don't know anything about the incidents being described, of course, but it wouldn't, if this were a policy, it wouldn't eliminate the issues raised. It would simply require that they be reported, right? The conversations would still take place. They would be reported. I think that the policy as described is easy enough to understand. It is very difficult to implement, in the sense that, as I understand what was articulated, were any of you to have a conversation in the supermarket or in a parking lot or on a ball field with the mayor or a county commissioner, you'd have to report that to the board, and you'd have to report it in public because it wouldn't be the subject of any exception to the Sunshine Act, which I think is the intent, but I don't know what that would be like, right? If in the course of a month, I mean, you're going to run into elected officials all the time. You probably do. I think, and I certainly don't want to speak for Mr. Tufano at all, I think the intent of the motion is not so much the conversations as it is any decisions which would come out of those conversations. And that's different. Again, to the point raised by Mr. Polari, I can't speak to whether or not you have an existing policy which addresses that, or there's an existing policy that doesn't quite address it, which could be enhanced. So I certainly don't want to overstep my role here, but I think there is a substantial difference between private decisions and private conversations. And one I think is addressable, and one I think would be extremely challenging for the board. So certainly, to the extent that we, as counsel of the board, can play a role in either reviewing, enhancing, modifying, amending an existing policy, if this is the board's pleasure, that's one thing. I think this, as articulated tonight, would be challenging, to say the least. But I'll defer to the board, as I say, in terms of what role we can play, depending on the board's pleasure in response to this issue. Thank you, Madam President.
I guess it would have to do about board business.
But, get closer, we can't
I
hear you.
wrote that, official board business, yes.
Well, that would be, I think, even harder to enforce, because what is official board business? For example, and I'll use my own example, when I think I publicized it, when I was approached about a shared services agreement as president of the board to discuss with Mayor Delina, it was just a discussion. There was no promise, there was no thing. Well, let me finish, if I may finish. It was a congenial, discussion. It was something that, I'm always talking about the enrollment, I'm always talking about construction. And on August 11th, I believe I notified in the committee notes about the stadium field, track, and bleachers proposal. I think I also and before that, we talked about, anytime I talked to Mayor Delina, I brought it to the board. And I made very clear that nothing was definitive, that there was a discussion, there was no promise made, it had to be worked out, we were going to try in the best interest of the district. I mean, so when
This motion wouldn't apply to you then, because you did everything the way you're supposed to do it.
But, I mean, I think there could be a gray area. I understand what your position is. I don't think things should be done in secret.
Correct.
And I certainly don't think people should, really, no one, not even the board president, should make a promise. It's very explicit in the ethics that we shouldn't be doing it. Maybe instead of the motion on the policy, what we should do is get more definitive about enforcing our ethics. But that's, motion's on the table. No one else has a question. We'll call the vote. Okay, Mr. Gorski.
Motion moved by Mr. Tufano, seconded by Ms. Skirby. Ms. Belko.
No.
Ms. Bierman.
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky.
No.
Mr. Pelori.
No.
Ms. Siegel.
No.
Ms. Skirby.
Yes.
Mr. Tufano.
Yes.
Madam President.
No.
Madam President, motion fails.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tufano, for your intent. I hope that we can stick by our ethics and maybe bring that out a little bit more during next year.
Madam President,
Yes.
Hasn't been done
if I
that
may.
way.
You brought up a very good point about the community members and especially the students doing the food donation. We also have organizations such as the IFM that we do that with the school children, and we provide them with voluntary hours, which they very much need. So I strongly urge people to continue to participate, especially in that. I'll be remiss if I did not acknowledge, I know Rupert did a good job of going through everybody, but just because he's here, Steve Ryback and Doug Foy have been a guiding light for me through the 3 years that I've been here, so thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Ms. Belko.
I had the pleasure in the last few weeks of attending a few events here at the high school, and the first one has kind of come to my head. It is we did the Winter Fest, similar to the Fall Fest, but it was held indoors, and it was really a very a nice event where the children from all over the district came to the high school, and they had the gym all decorated like snowflakes and all that. Snowflakes made out of white hangers. That was like ingenious. I was like, oh my goodness. But everybody had a lot of fun. It was really very good. It was a very good night, and it was enjoyed by everybody. And then also this past Monday, I had the pleasure of attending the, make sure, hopefully I get this right, the National Honors Arts Society. Maybe I think I got it wrong, but you get my point. It was the art students, the Honors Art Students National Society. They held, and the art teachers who are alumni of the high school, a couple of teachers. They let us in a painting thing where, you paint pictures. And what we've done this now for 4 years, and literally what we do is your child paints one half of the picture, you paint the other half, and then you match them up together. And, this year we did a snow globe, which was really fun. It's like a little snowman inside a snow globe on a snow hill, and, they teach you how to paint things. It's kind of like a Bob Ross thing, for those of you old enough to remember Bob Ross, but showing my age. But it was a lot of fun, and it was really well done, and the students were incredible. They did receive credits for volunteering and coming out for the National Honor Society, and they really did a great job. So it was, again, another really great job done by our Falcon Pals program and our, across the district, and it was really great. One of the greatest things I liked on the festival that they did was you saw teachers from all over. So the students and the parents got to see teachers that they haven't seen in years, and from the grade schools on up to the high school. So it was a really good collaboration between the entire district. So I thought it was really great. I wanted to report that out.
Thank you, Ms. Belko. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, our next order of business is the public forum where you can discuss things certainly still things on the agenda, but anything else you choose to. Please don't forget your name and address, and 4 minutes for consideration of all. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening, Betty Sabarito, 2 Barrymore Drive. During this time of the year, we look back and reflect, and we try and show gratitude or try and make some changes. So at this time, on behalf of CPAG, which is the Special Education Parent Advisory Group, I would like to thank the members of the Board of Education for their voluntary service. It is not always easy, and it is certainly easier to sit back and criticize all of you, but thank you all for your time. In addition, I wanted to give thank you to Dr. Lehman for his commitment to working closely with CPAG to address systemic issues in special education. Your involvement has been instrumental in beginning to move our district in the right direction. Together, collaborating, CPAG, yourself, and your supervisors, Mr. Flown, Mr. Maralda, and Dr. Roselle, have been working diligently in making the necessary changes for our special education students, staff, and department. To that point, I want to commend all of you that I just mentioned for welcoming the change in leadership in this district and working so collaboratively with Mrs. Chanley to ensure that the work we are doing continues smoothly. How you have all worked together shows your dedication to this district and our students, and that you value Monroe as a team. Mrs. Chanley, we also want to thank you for meeting with the CPAG leaders to discuss and listen firsthand to all of our concerns, which we have been very vocal about. In addition, that we saw you at Winterfest and that you came to our parent meeting last week just to listen to the group of parents speaks volumes, and we are confident that you will continue to collaborate with CPAG, giving special education the equity that it deserves. To our district administrators, principals, vice principals, and supervisors, thank you for being a united front and team, demonstrating and showing support of Mrs. Chanley by all of your attendance at the last Board of Education meeting. We have so many challenges right now in this district, and if we do not all unite and put our students, staff, and education at the forefront and leave all the politics aside, we are not going to be successful. It's okay to have differences of opinion, it's okay to have respectful discussions, and it's okay to vote differently on items. What is not okay is anyone trying to cause division, whether internal or external, because they clearly do not have this district's best interests at heart and probably need a better hobby. Thank you all for your work during the most challenging year in education. Happy holidays to all who celebrate, and once again, thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Prakash Purab, 33 Dana Drive. I also echo that we have to get more funding from the state on special education, okay? That is towards our heart, so whenever the senator and Congress, they're coming, we have to ask for that. What changes in the formula we can do so that our special education gets funding. Now, coming back to our children, students, volunteerism, Seva Diwali. Seva is a selfless service. Diwali is festival of life. festival, our festival, Indian festival. So for Seva Diwali, our students, about more than 100 students participated and raised about 19,000 pounds of food we distributed to the food pantries. So I will very appreciate, we have more than 400 families in our township which needs food, okay? Now coming to one question that about this Applegarth expansion, what is the next step? Clock close, please.
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you very much, sir. I'd be happy to respond. So now that we've had an opportunity to hear a presentation to the BG&T committee from SSP, which is one architectural firm that we had employed, and everybody was aware of that, and that was voted on for the cost to look at the safety, the well-being, what could be kept, what couldn't be kept, and so on and so forth, and they came up with the number of the 44 million. We do believe it's appropriate at this time to now look at DIG Group, which is another group which was responsible for the building of the high school, as well as at least 5 to 6 stopgap projects at the middle school. They did some work on the elementary schools. So I'm working collaboratively with Mr. Tague, and we discussed, and Dr. Lehman and Mr. Gorski, bringing in the gentleman who's the proprietor of that company. We already had one meeting regarding having him look from the process of a marketing strategy, so there's no cost to the district, no cost to the taxpayers, to have an overall look at the middle school and what it would look like if we needed to expand. Additionally, we'll be meeting with him possibly tomorrow or the next day. We're waiting to set up a formal meeting so that we can have a conversation with him about what his input would be in looking at the Applegarth project. Because we do believe now that we have the demographer services have now been approved to move forward, we want to be as expedient as possible because we are very well aware of the deadlines to move forward with a referendum. So, in short, the next process, which we've already started, is to have DIG Group look as well, and then to make a determination, because when this board makes the decision about going to a referendum, we want to look and be diligent about Applegarth as well as the needs, if it is doable under one umbrella of financial appropriateness, when we go out to referendum for both some changes to the middle school and possibly some additions to the high school.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Very
Thank you, sir.
satisfactory answer. Thank you.
you.
Now coming to the, yesterday or day before yesterday, one of the students in Manalpan on the Facebook or social media threatened to shoot. Okay? This is a serious question. So, what our policies are, because, recently the shooting took place, and what happened was the student threatened, and they called the parents. The parents didn't want to take the students back home. They allowed the student to get into the building, and he shot. So we have to be preventive. What our current policy says. Suppose same thing happened, there is a threat, students threatens, so it is on social media. Now, the question is, are you going to isolate that student, even if he comes to the school in separate area, find out what the cause is, and take action? Never allow, do thorough evaluation, because we don't want to let the student inside. I don't know what the policies are. Student might have hidden somewhere the ammunition, so many things, and shooting starts. So this is a question I don't want, if you have an answer, what current policies are, I want to know. I posted this in Monroe Indians for Civic Action. Several parents suggested, so I'll be forwarding the entire to the communication committee and policy committee. But today, suddenly this happens today now. What tomorrow morning you all are going to do? Going to isolate the student outside or going to allow him inside, he or she inside? Time close, please.
If you'd like me to. So we had actually this conversation, Dr. Lehman and myself, because just to go back for a moment, even before the Manalapan situation. So when the situation occurred in the other state, we immediately worked with Mr. Piro, who's our head of security, reached out to all of the administrative teams to confirm that we are on top of the situation of following through with making sure our doors are properly locked. All of the protocols and procedures that have been in place for many, many years are still in place. Everything is accurate and everything is being done. So that was the first thing that we did. The second thing in response directly to your questions, we had this exact conversation. And policy or no policy, and maybe I would wind up being on the newspaper the next day and don't really care. If that situation occurred and we could not confirm, we would then immediately go to a virtual learning environment in that high school. We would not allow the building to be opened and have anybody present. We would immediately contact the police to go directly to that home, because we will never take a chance with children's lives. And we cannot, if you cannot confirm whether or not it is a credible threat, and it's in the middle of the night, could happen, like you said, sir, could be 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. Not everything happens at the appropriate timetable when it's convenient for people. We would, and we actually had this exact conversation. If, God forbid, this was the situation in Monroe, the schools would, no one would be permitted to come to school. And if it was just a high school or a specific school, we would narrow it down, and that school would be closed, and an immediate Blackboard Connect would go out to all families, letting them know that due to an emergency situation that will be shared at a later, with specificity once we had more information, but kindly be advised, for the safe and well-being of your children are asked to remain home and go on virtual learning.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
I don't want to take your time, but I will write a note, but thank you, that is a strong position.
My
Thank you very
pleasure.
much.
Mr. Gagliardi, do you want to add to that at all? Or, no?
No,
Okay,
I think it was well covered.
good, thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
next, please.
Hi, Pradeep Madam, 4 Jake Place. Thanks for your explanation, Ms. Chanley. So one request is I see whenever this kind of situation happens, there were phone calls are going on. It never happened here, but any important information, we are getting phone calls or emails. So have you considered any time to send a text message to the parents?
Do we have the ability to text message?
Are you specific? I would say.
The Blackboard Connect is our communication tool. There is an SMS feature, text feature on there. I can verify with technology, they're in the back, but Mr. Feldman may be the one to answer. We typically don't push a message out that way, only because not everyone will receive it. We know on the receiving end, a phone call is probably the most received piece, an email. We do get some emails that kick back, and we can tell you exactly what email addresses they are, but there is an SMS feature. I would suspect it's available to use. I can verify that, but we certainly have that ability.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Malam, let me ask, if you used all three methods, would that take up more time? I mean, because the time is of
I'm
the
not asking
essence.
specifically to send messages. I just want to make sure, do we have the capacity, or do we have the technology available or not?
But I think that if we have any of the available methods, we should utilize all, especially in an emergency or crisis situation. Dr. Lehman and
Yeah, so
and
we
Ms.
have the
Chandler?
ability to send them simultaneously. So we actually, on occasion, have sent an email message that's basically narrated through the phone. So you get a message that sounds like it's not one of us speaking.
Yep.
I think if we were to pair that up with a text, we'd probably have to pare it down a little bit. Some of the emails are pretty wordy. Text messages, we want to be a little tighter, a little shorter. But when they're developed, you can send them all three simultaneously. You can send them one independently. And then even within the phone call feature, we can do, typically like on a Synodian stuff, we send it's called a general announcement. It goes to basically the first phone number in your emergency contacts. If there's an emergency situation, we have the ability to send the phone call to all contacts in the emergency contacts. So if you have 4 people listed in Genesis, all 4, which could be someone's employer even, will get the call as well. So we do have flexibility in a situation like an emergent situation. We would go all out and it wouldn't be the general call. It would be everybody, get a hold of anybody we can and get everybody safe.
Okay, great. And there was a discussion about the foreign languages, ESL, for Telugu, Gujarati, and Arabic. I would like to thank the curriculum committee for considering that. And we have so many community leaders, and we have some classes are going on in the township with those languages. If you need any help, you can reach out to any of the community leaders like Prakashji or someone. That is another point. And there was a mailer sent by our Mayor Delina regarding the pilot program. He is considering a pilot program which is, what is that called? In lieu of taxes, they are going to fund some amount to the school district or towards the school district or school infrastructure. It was sent on the December newsletter by Mayor Delina. What I request you is outgoing board members, Mr. Pauluri and Ms. Siegel, Ms. Siegel ran on the same ticket, and I would like her to make sure this program goes, because these taxes will directly come to the Board of Education, not to the state, and then state gives a portion of it, right? So in that way, it is like more beneficial. The viability of the program for our township, I have my own doubts, because this is mostly for underdeveloped areas and like abort districts or something. But if it is viable, I would like to request Ms. Siegel, because she ran on the same ticket, to make sure this goes through and we see a light at the end of the tunnel. And I request Mr. Pauluri to, because he is on the planning board, if it comes to the planning board discussions, I would like to make sure that this is going through. Okay, I still have one more minute. I would like to, I know I'm announcing and it's a rant. Look who showed up today, our ex-board president. He did not have time to show up for the last 1 year, and he showed up today. But he showed up in the sending school district board meeting and bashes the current board. I have the recording. I will share if you have all time. But I'm not going to do that one. Thank you.
Oh, stop.
Hey, good evening. Mike Weiner, 9 Sequoia Court. I was here last month to address some concerns I had with the ECE and Falcon Care program. You know, just to quickly review, my daughter was misplaced on the first day of school and missed her first day of kindergarten. I didn't get a chance to finish my comments, and I feel like it's important to make you guys aware of some of these things. So to continue where I left off last month, basically, as I started to investigate what happened with my daughter being misplaced and missing her first day of kindergarten, I discovered some things about the Falcon Care program. And if I'm wrong on any of this, feel free to correct me. It was taken over by the school district a few years ago, and it makes about $400,000 a year for the school district. The teachers that make up Falcon Care staff, they're not in tenured positions. They're not offered membership in the MTEA. And, you know, these are people that are engaging with our kids on a daily basis year after year. Like my one daughter, she's had the same before care teacher for 3 years in a row. There's been a substitute teacher in the ECE class that my one daughter's in from the beginning of the school year. No one was notified. None of the parents were notified, even after I reached out to the school district to confirm that that was the case and asked them to notify the parents. No one still reached out to the parents and let them know. There were struggles to hire a full-time teacher. You know, perhaps that has to do with the compensation package. And the director of the Falcon Care program, I know, resigned, and we hired another one, so obviously there was some change there. Related to this, right, my observations of the before care program, and I only see it as I drop my kids off, et cetera, and hear about their experiences there. But I have to say, it doesn't really seem like much is offered there either. There's like some older, out-of-date toys. There's no technology for the kids to use. In fact, they bring in their own technology on half days. Again, the staff aren't really treated on an equal level in terms of union membership or pay. It seems like there's a lack of funds directed at the program in general to give our kids a better experience. And to be honest, you know, for the type of tax money we all pay, plus an extra $7 grand a year that I'm paying for these programs, myself, and I would think a lot of the parents who use these programs, if they're aware, would expect a little bit more. You know, for instance, like bringing in some outside entertainment for the kids once in a while, or getting some technology in the before care programs where these kids who are so used to using technology on a daily basis, they're there for two hours with very little to do. You know, with that said, I came tonight and in the last meeting to make you guys aware of these issues. And I'm confident that many of you are probably aware of them already. And really to make the parents in Monroe who use these programs aware that, you know, we're paying serious money for these programs, and this program is making the school district $400,000 a year. I actually heard, you know, through the grapevine that at 1 year the $400,000 was put towards the purchase of the trailers. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I mean, if it is, my goodness, let's take at least a little piece of that money and put it back into these programs where our kids are spending so much time, for the parents that have to use them, who are paying serious money for it. instead of taking anything we can from the program with putting very little back in from what I've seen anyway. So thank you for the time. I also want to say, let's have a motion where anybody who ends up in the newspaper for bullying people online resigns. How about that motion? No? Thank you.
Next, please. Did you want to address that at all? No.
Because that was before me.
Okay.
Hi, Sarah Shama, 15 Edward Avenue. I actually have a few things. Oh, I have a few things to. Hey, this is my time. Can I start over my 4 minutes?
That's enough. That's enough. This young lady has the time. Please reset the clock. Anyone
Much
who is
appreciated.
talking will be asked to leave, so unless she's at the podium. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Sarah Shama, 15 Edward Avenue.
Thank you.
So I have a few things to say, actually, and this is only my second Board of Ed meeting that I've been to.
Lucky you.
Yeah, honestly, like, God bless all of you who are involved. I never will run for the Board of Ed, but, more kudos to all of you who are doing this job, because it is a hard job. But one thing that I have noticed and really saddens me is the polarity and the divisiveness and just the tension. This is the top of the food chain, right? How does that affect the energy that goes out into our schools and for our teachers and the staff? And I'm noticing that on various occasions where we've reached out to directors or other people who are involved on a more authoritative level, that they don't respond. Parents are emailing and they're not getting responses. And I'll give you an example of a recent issue that happened, and I hope that you will investigate it further because it was extremely disheartening. And a lot of this ties into, student mental health, right? So student mental health is very important, and if you noticed, the Surgeon General issued a stark warning about young youth's mental health last week. And I have a friend, a very dear, student. The families are really good friends of ours, and he wanted to wrestle for the middle school team. And there wasn't a coach, but they finally got a coach. Great, okay. We don't have enough people on the roster, but those students, that are on the roster are excited to wrestle. And if you know anything about wrestling, if you don't have a complete roster and you're showing up at other towns to wrestle, you may end up losing, even if you pin every kid, because you're forfeiting too many matches. So apparently there was an issue with registration and a physical and all this kind of stuff, and just paperwork related to logistics. And this student was told he's not allowed to wrestle. Perfect health, he's a great kid, good student, everything. And to me, that's an obstacle that is being put in his place by an adult, which shouldn't be the case. We should be doing everything in our power to give all of these children an opportunity to do things that are going to keep them healthy from an academic level, a social level, health and fitness level. And so that is something that I find, and that's just one example, because I've had some other examples as well, but I don't want to waste all of my time on this one matter. But I do want you to look into that a little bit further, please, because it's not the only student that I've heard who has been, denied an opportunity to play sports just because of logistical paperwork.
Could I speak on that, sir?
Please.
If you want to stop the clock?
Stop the clock, please. I do have a question.
Sure.
This is not a club sport yet, right? Because
No, he's an eighth grader. He's an eighth grader, and he didn't have an opportunity.
Oh, yes, wrestling is a sport in the middle school.
He didn't have an opportunity to play last year because of virtual, and the season was canceled.
And I cannot speak to the specifics of your friend's child, but I will let you know that I've been here so long, so years ago, we used to actually have a school doctor.
Sure.
So one of my nurses, when I was the principal, would literally take all of the information, including the physicals and all the forms, and there's like a year-long form, there's a 90-day form, and bring it to the actual doctor's home. That's the close proximity we had.
Sure.
I want to say, and I'm not sure of the years, I'm going to say at least 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, we went ahead and we now utilize a doctor's, I don't want to call it a vendor, but for lack of a better term, it's called Family ID.
Okay.
And I think what has happened is there are set dates, deadlines, and parameters that must be followed. And the information from our director of sports, athletics, goes out directly and gives the deadlines.
Okay.
So you're absolutely right, because I'm the one that used to get the phone calls when I was the principal.
Sure.
It's very disheartening when we have to tell a child no. The problem is, as per state code, you have to meet these deadlines of getting everything done, because we no longer can drive it over to the physician's home.
Okay.
So, and I don't know the particular situation.
Sure.
And I don't know who is at fault, and sometimes it's not fault, it just happens.
Right.
And
There's a lot going on.
because the children should be always allowed. I think what has happened, though, over the years, and I'll be happy if you want to later tell me the person's name.
You
privately.
could call me later, I'll tell you.
Okay, you'll let me know.
We'll be
I think what has
announcing it
happened
publicly.
sometimes is that they do miss deadlines.
Sure.
And sometimes there is a gray area. Sometimes we are within that gray area where we can make a phone call and let it happen. Sometimes that's impossible. So
And I
because of the
completely-
online program and the ability, because if it is not signed off by this family ID physicians,
Sure.
it cannot be approved, and therefore it is against the law.
Sure.
Because of the actual state statute.
And I can understand that, but I think the fact that there was no physical response, it was a.
Well, I agree with that.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
your kid can't play. And then when you ask, well, why? What are the the reasons
Like I
behind?
just explained.
Yeah, give me an explanation. That was a legitimate explanation. I can go back and say it was because he missed the deadline. They can't get it to the doctor. Or maybe they can allow the parent to get it to the doctor. Like.
Well, that we can't do.
Okay, maybe not. I don't know those details. However, but like communication. That's
No,
what
I
we
agree.
need.
I agree.
Communicate so parents understand and they're not feeling like their town doesn't care. And that's what I get from a lot of people. And I had a similar experience with my own child with an email that I sent out to one of the tag directors asking specific questions. And I got an email that said, you'll get a letter in the mail. And I was like, but I had specific questions, and she didn't answer any of them. And the letter did not. And I said, okay, let me wait for the letter. I got the letter. It didn't answer any of my questions. I was like, oh, okay, forget it, So stuff like that, I think, is just disheartening, as a parent and as someone who's trying to provide their children with all the resources possible so that they could grow up to be wonderful adults who are contributing to the world. And they're getting halted by things that we adults are doing. And that, I think, is wrong. So before my time is up, one other thing I wanted to talk about was just the COVID protocols, because my son was quarantined. He had no symptoms and a negative PCR, and he still wasn't allowed to go to school. That's hard, he's completely fine sitting home watching Christmas movies, what is my explanation to him to that? And I keep getting different things. Oh, it's CDC guidelines. Oh, it's the Department of Health. But every town is doing something different.
Okay, Matt, you can briefly answer.
Okay,
what she said.
so briefly, and Dr. Lehman and I have this conversation daily, and we speak with our head nurse daily. So what has happened is currently, the procedure that we are following in Monroe Township, and you are right, every district might be different, is the recommendations of the Health Department and the CDC that states that if you're a close contact, then you would then have to follow the rules of the quarantine, and it winds up being 14 days.
Right now it's 14 days.
14 days.
Because we're in the high, there's a
The
Cali
orange
score,
zone,
it's a
yeah.
There's a regional rating where the Central East region, we've actually been high since the summer.
Okay.
Other
Okay.
counties around us have changed to yellow. If it were to change to yellow, based on our procedures right now, it would be a 10-day quarantine, but test after 5 days, return after day 7, if we move to yellow. So we have a flexible kind of, and if it goes lower than that, there's even other.
So that's what's dictating.
I can't
Oh,
have you
sorry.
continue. I mean, he
Okay.
can answer, but, you
Yeah,
call
Yeah,
the district office and they'll give you, and we'll try to
I
keep
tried,
everybody
and I got,
informed.
yeah. You can call me tomorrow. I'll talk you through it.
Okay.
I'll continue to answer the question without back and forth.
sure.
It's something that we are proactively addressing. Right now, our numbers are spiking after, I don't say spiking, but there's a
Going
bump
up.
post-Thanksgiving. It's consistent with what's in the state, consistent with what's in the nation. We are proactively strategizing, and we'll just have further discussion with the board about what we can do to step things down in terms of quarantining once we get back from break, we see what the numbers are looking like, and we start to head in a different direction. Some districts have not followed the county health department guidance, and all along have had the test after 5 days, return after 7. If you choose not to do that, you quarantine for 10 days. Since the beginning, we've been following that guidance from the Department of Health, which is Cali score rated based on the weekly, it's every Thursday. Our region, all regions in the state are evaluated. So right now, the entire state is high, which is red. It's been progressively since Thanksgiving becoming more red. Like I said, prior to Thanksgiving, our region was the only one that was high. Everybody else was yellow, and we were getting towards yellow. We never got there. So that's kind of the ebb and flow of our data recently. I'll send out the email tomorrow with our numbers tomorrow. Again, it's consistent with a post-Thanksgiving kind of bump right now. That's where we're at. But what we have is not set in stone. It is a live adaptable piece, and we have an opportunity when I think the time is more appropriate, like right now, if we were to remove quarantine restrictions, it's kind of, the numbers are going up, it's not the time to necessarily make that move. But once we start to see some movement, we can have a conversation about how we move forward with that. So that's kind of, I think, a general approach as to we're doing the right thing. I can state this, there is community transmission, there is some, but not extensive, I would say minimal transmission in schools. So the translation of that is we are not overwhelmingly spreading in school.
Great.
What's happening is the cases that we're reporting are oftentimes students quarantined because their parents or their siblings are sick, and then they test positive. So there's a chance they weren't even in school, some of the numbers that I'm reporting out. But the students that were in school have close contacts, and that's where this really spreads out.
Thank you.
I'd like to see those numbers reduce, and I think we might see them reduce with we're now more than 2 weeks out from the 5 to 11-year-old vaccines, sort of elementary schools. Anybody that's chosen to get their children vaccinated, they now no longer have to quarantine, so maybe those numbers will, in terms of close contacts, kind of minimize a little bit.
Thank
So that's
you.
kind of our COVID summary.
Yeah, I appreciate the thorough answers. Thank you.
Thank you. No, while we're waiting for this young lady, no one's happy about not having our children in school. It's just that we are really being controlled by the virus, not by any other intention. Thank you. Go ahead. Thank you.
Rosemary Carolyn, 3 Walter Way. This is my first visit to the board.
Well, welcome.
My husband and I have lived in Monroe for nearly 7 years. In my career, I taught in the New Jersey public school system, as well as in higher education, and I also enjoyed a long, successful career in sales. 3 years ago, I earned a PhD in education from Rutgers University, and currently I'm a part-time lecturer at the Rutgers Graduate School of Education in teacher ed. I also teach in a college program in the New Jersey prison system. I know that many people consider degrees and credentials simply as pieces of paper and not relevant to a person's ability to perform in an administrative job like school superintendent. On the contrary, I assure you that the intensive study and research that's required to earn a doctorate add both breadth and depth to a person's knowledge and understanding of the many issues involved in education today. Monroe is a premier township populated by many well-educated, family-oriented professionals who care about the quality of the public education here. Why would we lower our standards by hiring a superintendent without a doctorate or certification as a school administrator, as well as someone who allowed people in the school system to believe incorrectly that she had earned a doctorate? What kind of message does this send to our children? Shouldn't we expose our children to individuals with integrity as well as educational accomplishment? The primary purpose of public education is to build strong citizens who are well-informed, can think critically, and can grow into leaders of the next generation. To accomplish this properly, we owe it to our children to fill the position of superintendent with the best, most highly qualified person we can find. The Board of Ed needs to do a more extensive search for that person. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just like to take the opportunity to correct one misstatement, and that is that the person you're speaking of was vetted and re-vetted, and that person did not put themselves out as having a doctorate. It was a mistake, it was a technical error, and it was long ago, and it has been corrected, but it was not due to the person, personally to that person, so thank you.
Tim Esso, 2 Allison Court. I just have to disagree with the woman that just spoke. Ms. Chanley has come up through the ranks. She's proven to everybody, myself, students, parents, that she is more than able and capable to do the job of superintendent. With that said as well, we had just a parent come up here and talk about divisiveness. Yeah, there's a lot of turmoil, a lot of divisiveness going on, but like anything else, right? when you squeeze the grapes and you let them ferment, it gets better and better and better, and you got the best wine. The people spoke. In November, they spoke. They spoke the last election. They spoke again this election. The board we have coming in is going to be very impressive. So for those who just show up on occasion, possibly you should come to January's meetings. We're going to see a new board take the helm, okay, and do the right thing. I also want to speak about builder impact fees. You talked about them earlier. While I was on the campaign trail, I spoke in depth to everybody I went to, okay, which was over 5,000 houses, and I told them, we have no builder impact fees, okay? I will tell you, Madam President, that as a board, as this board grows and as this board gets stronger, because I'm sure it will with the new incoming people coming in, that are not looking for political gain, I implore you to put pressure, I implore everybody here to put pressure on our mayor and our council. Okay, do your research like I did. $1.1 million from builders with about not one dime going to the schools. Not one dime. No builder impact fees, okay? Yes, it's a law, okay? We have no builder impact fees in the state of New Jersey, but laws are made to be changed. We've already seen laws being broken right here in Monroe. Let's do a lot better in making a change, okay? I don't know if maybe the attorney could answer this question, but as a builder, okay, who, whether it be, I'm not going to name particular builders, but anyway, can a builder donate money to the town? Or does it have to be through a party? And then that party decides whether or not, okay, they are, has builder impact fees or not. I mean, can a builder flat out donate to the school? Can you stop my time?
So, sir, the first time you asked the question, you said, can they donate money to the town? And the second time you said to the school. Which one? I mean, I can answer both.
I guess to the schools.
So, yes, it can't be mandated. So there are mechanisms available in the law, what you're describing in terms of builder impact fees, for example. There can be mechanisms in the law where if someone is going to have a development where there is property tax delayed or deferred, that there are still monies set aside for the school. That's really up to the town to control. That is, the Board of Education is sort of along for the ride, right? The Board of Education can't force that. It's the taxing entity. So, for example, you may not be aware of this. The board technically doesn't even collect the taxes, right? The municipality collects the taxes and pays them out to the board.
That I know.
So even though the board is funded by tax money, the board doesn't have tax collection power. So the point you're making is perfectly valid, but it's the municipal officials rather than the Board of Education that can make that happen. The board can advocate for it, but the decision is left to the municipal governing body, not the Board of Education.
Wow, that is very eye-opening and a great answer, thank you. Because you figure all the money that's donated to the political party, Democratic Party in this town, you would figure that they would put some pressure on these builders, you know, to help out the school system. It's helping out the taxpayers. Wow, that's very eye-opening, thank you.
I mean, in large cities, you'll hear about pilot programs where there's an arrangement with a developer set up by the municipality. Sometimes money is set aside for educational purposes, but that's at the benevolence of the town.
Right. Yeah, we have not seen that here. Not that I know of, unless someone could tell me they have. With that said as well, Madam President, no member of this board should be threatened by a member in the public. And noted that I heard the whole thing, and Mr. Tefano should file a report on that man. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hello, Michael Oleski again, 50 Mayberry Avenue. Want to thank you, all of you, for your comments and willingness to listen to some of my questions before. I guess a couple of things real quick. One was, I don't have the information handy here, but there's someone here in the state of New Jersey, in the state legislature, that actually is sponsoring a bill with regard to builder impact fees. I don't have the information, but I'll get it and I'll send it on to you.
Yes.
Yeah, because of course, what I was thinking real quick was, hey, I don't see Senator Greenstein's name attached to it, and maybe we can get it attached to it as well. I guess, just want to maybe speak towards the comments that Ms. Chanley made a little earlier about where we're headed with regard to the school referendum. I just wanted to ask, and I realize there's a lot going on, and it's around Christmas time, but please give some thought to actually putting that in print and getting it out to the rest of the public so that we all know, where things are headed. Other than maybe in the minutes of this meeting, that's as far as it's going to go now. But that information's got to get out to the rest of the town as well. And that's about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Tracy Hart.
Can you use your microphone a little bit closer?
My name is Tracy Hart. I reside at 110 Avenue K, East Monroe. Based on a previous conversation that you were discussing with regard to board members being involved in decision-making, I just have a quick question pertaining to whether or not this district excuses extracurricular activities such as cheerleading competition, and why is that done? Dr. Clark, please.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the
Excuse
question.
absences for cheerleading competitions on our board members involved in that decision-making process.
I still don't understand the
She's,
question.
do you want
Go
to
ahead,
respond?
please.
Hello, Ms. Hart, how are you?
Fine.
Regarding the cheerleading competition, that was something that was brought to me, and I want to say under Dr. Kozak, who was the superintendent at the time, I personally brought that to him. Because cheer is a community organization where children go and compete, and it's on behalf of the community of Monroe, but they're not permitted to also cheer at school. We try to get a cheer group, but the community that is the, I don't know what they're called, the Monroe... Wolverines. What is it called? Wolverines. The Monroe Wolverines do not permit those children to cheer for their school if they cheer for them. So when they have an opportunity to go, and in my opinion at the time, was to represent Monroe, back then, and this has got to be going back, I don't know how many years, to Dr. Kozak, we did excuse 3 days. 1 day for the competition, 1 day for travel there, and 1 day for travel back. It does not occur in the high school because high school is credit completion, but it does occur in the elementary school and middle school. And the board would not be making that decision now.
Board members will not be involved in that.
They were not involved in that.
Okay. Well, I have different information. In addition, I just think that that's an extracurricular activity. There are numerous other extracurricular activities do not get excused, and I think some consideration should be made for those situations. Additionally, unfortunately, I was not surprised about the information discussed during the previous board meeting regarding the selection of the interim superintendent. I was advised that this was in the work years ago. An evaluation of a candidate's education, certification, experience, years of service, and performance are a few of the important things to consider. Thus, I believe the most qualified of the applicants was not selected in this previous process. Everyone elected to the board should operate in the best interest of the children of this district and without any ulterior motives. It appears that this is the case in this township, and you are doing a disservice to the position of interim Monroe Township School District Superintendent, and in the long run, the interest of the children, and they will suffer. We teach our children that misrepresenting, lying, cheating, stealing, a violation of the code of ethics. And if they violate these things, they're disciplined, encouraged not to do so. You explain that the situation was a mistake. I do not believe in repetitive mistakes. In addition to that, in the position that you currently have, I wish you well in your time period here, but I hope you do a more responsive job in responding to parental concerns and getting back to parents with information and follow up with issues concerning their children in a timely manner. Thank you.
Thank you. That's enough. Thank you. Anyone else?
Doug Poy, 4 Tamarack Road. At last month's board meeting,
I heard a member of the board, as well as the board president, briefly make mention of the fact that the Commissioner of Education had approved the hiring of our interim superintendent. My comments are not directed in terms of who that person is, but in terms of the process that this board has used. But it piqued my interest when I heard this mention of the Commissioner of Education, because as you know, I was previously on a board, and we had some interim superintendents, and I never heard of the matter having to go to the Commissioner of Education. So because of it piquing my interest, I decided to go to the New Jersey Administrative Code, Title 6A, Education, Chapter 9B, and the subchapter 13, which deals with acting administrators. And this is what I found. A Board of Education, if a Board of Education must fill the position of a superintendent and assistant superintendent, et cetera, with a person who is designated as the acting administrator in a respective situation and who does not hold the standard New Jersey certificate required for the position, the board may state reasons why such action is necessary. If the stated reasons justify the need to appoint someone as an administrator in an acting capacity who is not properly certified to hold the position, the commissioner may approve the request on a case-by-case basis. And that's what happened here. I understand that. As far as I know, every teacher in this district is certified. Every supervisor is certified. Every principal, assistant principal is certified. Our assistant superintendent is certified. Yet this board chose to appoint someone who was not certified. So clearly there had to be reasons which you provided to the Commissioner of Education. I was also concerned with the salary, and I asked about that last month. And it was a salary which I don't think any prior superintendent in this district has ever made. I know the previous superintendent certainly was not at that salary, and I don't think any superintendent preceding her was at this salary. So I just want to let you know that in my opinion, and I'm sure in the opinion of other members of this public, the process that you used has a certain smell about it. Not of cronyism, not of nepotism, I'm sorry, but of cronyism. There's something afoul with your process. And I do hope as you move forward that you will be more careful in your decision-making in terms of who will be our permanent superintendent. Thank you.
Mr. Gagliardi, would you speak to that, please?
Sure. So the process that was described, and I'm going to go over it in a second, is a process that I have seen play out as far as acting superintendents dozens of times in the course of my career, and I've represented school districts for about 30 years. There is nothing unusual about the process that I'm going to describe in a moment, and in the course of those 30 years, it's really only been a matter of intrigue and dialogue here in Monroe Township. Draw whatever conclusions from that you wish. So it is incorrect to say that the individual serving as acting superintendent now is not certified. She is certified. She is, like all of the educators you have in the district, she did not have a standard certification to serve as a chief school administrator. And the odd catch-22 there is that in order to have a standard certification, you have to be in the position and be mentored, right? So you have to be in the position in order to get it, but you have to get it in order to be in the position. That's sort of the catch-22, which is why you have what is otherwise a fairly routine process set up, so that in order to fill the position, it would have to be someone who is an assistant superintendent or someone who has previously served as a superintendent. So you literally had one person in the district, based on that criteria, who would be eligible. It's the gentleman sitting to my left, who probably enhances his credentials by pointing out that he wasn't interested in serving in the position. So that would leave anyone else within the district, if the board in its discretion wanted to promote continuity, promote from within, the person would have to be named with a substandard certificate. Nothing wrong with their certificate, they just don't have the permanent certificate to be a chief school administrator, which necessitates the use of the administrative code position provision that, sir, you correctly described. So that the Commissioner of Education and the county office have two roles. The first, which we didn't talk about, but which probably didn't exist, I don't know when you were on the board, sir, is the process of approving the contract, right? They have to bless the compensation of the person who sits as the chief school administrator, just as they do for business administrator. That's been in the law for, I think, a little less than 10 years. And then there's the process by which the Commissioner of Education has to sign off on someone who does not have that permanent certificate. In my 30 years, this is really the only time it's been the subject of delay and dialogue, centering around, as I understand it, an error in a yearbook that the candidate had nothing to do with, and asked that it be corrected, and it simply wasn't. And this was the source of great drama, but ultimately ended in a process where the commissioner did, which in my experience the commissioner has always done, which is allowed a Board of Education to name someone to the position if they don't have the standard certificate, as long as they are in the process of looking for someone, either another interim or a permanent, who has a standard certificate, and that's what the board is in the process of doing. And I assure you that explaining the circumstance of the typo in the yearbook and identifying in writing for the Department of Education that the board was going to go through a selection process looking for someone with a standard certificate was the only information presented to Trenton that led to the result that in my career it always leads to, which is allowing the board in its discretion to name the person that they think best for the position, as long as they are proceeding to look for someone with that certificate. So the idea that the person didn't have the certificate and it required this process in a vacuum seems to have a great deal of intrigue around it. But in reality, it's standard fare, and not quite standard in Monroe, but I assure you a process that districts throughout the state follow on a regular basis. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. I would also like to point out that previous acting superintendents had only the certificate of eligibility as well. And, you know, it's the same, it's interesting, as Mr. Gagliardo says, the intrigue around this position where others were also put through. So, yes.
Brian Fabiano, 19 Patricia Place. Can you imagine coming to this mic up here and spewing all this nonsense about the superintendent, acting superintendent, and then having an attorney explain the process, explain everything you just said and your cronies said is absolutely false? I mean, I don't know how you can tiptoe out of this building. You got to tiptoe real silently out of here because it's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment to see previous board presidents sit here month after month to create divisiveness in a town and in an education system that they're saying is important to their grandchildren and their children. This is ridiculous. The attorney couldn't have said it any better. And I spoke with the county superintendent at length. I spoke with the state commissioner's office, chief of staff, at length. And the fact is, the process was followed. And the fact remains, not in 30 years from this attorney and many others that I've spoken to, and even the state admitted, was this nonsense of back and forth. And again, I don't think we talk about a lot of the details that flow in here, but you have a member of the board who sits with the county superintendent on the board at the county college, but there's no conflict there. Unbelievable. Could you imagine sitting at this podium and saying to your grandchildren and your kids, you can't amount to anything in life if you don't have a doctorate? If you don't have an MBA? I mean, when we were kids growing up, our parents didn't have all these degrees. Our grandparents didn't have these degrees. What happened to experience? But time after time, these people sit here and they come to this mic. You're nothing if you don't have a doctorate. You're nothing if you don't have a doctorate. What about Goodall? I didn't see anybody when Goodall was the acting superintendent carrying on like this, embarrassing a career person in this district. What do you think this resignation list, month after month after month? Would you want to stay in this district? Disgusting. But now I'll get on to my questions. First one, what is the surplus in the budget? Please stop the clock.
Can you answer that?
As reported last month with the annual comprehensive financial report, the excess surplus figure is approximately $4.6 million. That's as of June 30, 21. For your understanding, that number has to carry over as a revenue source to the 22-23 budget that we're working on now.
And we couldn't have taken any money out of that surplus to pay for the fields? Ms. President, could we have used any money out of the surplus to pay for the fields?
That wasn't recommended by the administration, but I'm wondering
Why?
Well, because we have budgeted, that money is not a lot of money, and we do need it for capital improvements, and are we going to ask Mr. Tague at all? Anything? No? Okay, go ahead.
To address the finances of that, it's critical in this conversation to understand how excess surplus works. It's a savings from the operating budget. You have revenues in anticipation of what was in the budget, or expenditures that were less than what was in the budget, and that creates surplus. It's the management of the budget through the year that creates this figure. Where you have a figure of $5 million, and I'm going by memory now, it's not exact, that was carried over as a revenue source to the 21-22 budget, and you start off the 22-23 budget with a $4.6 million surplus figure, you are at a deficit of $400,000. You're starting off with a $400,000 deficit in the 22-23 budget as compared to the previous year. So to answer your question, yes, there are multiple mechanisms where that money could have been allotted or reserved to the fields. Capital reserve account is one of them. The board could earmark the $1.7 million. But then you would be looking at approximately a $2 million deficit with the budget, and I can tell you from experience, that's hard to close.
But the fact that we're getting the funds from the town and the town has to go out and bond them, what is it going to cost us now? Stop the clock. Because when you bond,
yes.
it costs more money. So 1.7 is going to cost us 3.5 now, maybe more.
And I am no way in the expert in the finances. However, if we did need money to fix things in a capital way, and we didn't have that money, we would probably have to go out and bond for it ourselves. And there is some mechanism, as I understand it, in the shared services, that it is easier or cheaper for the town to get the bonds and the interest, and please correct me if I'm wrong, than it would be if we had to bond for something similar. In other words, if we had to bond for $2 million to get some facilities or something done.
Madam, you have an excellent memory. What you're referring to is the shorter-term notes that the township would borrow to pay off that obligation, as opposed to the district borrowing, which would be for generally a longer term. The township can also get lower interest rates than the Board of Ed. I don't know what that money will compound to by the time it's paid off, but with interest rates where they are now, it's probably not that material.
Right, but do you see my point? Why do we have to come here and pry for this information? Why wasn't this information presented to us? I mean, I've gone to the council and asked about why they're giving money to the schools for the fields. I've come here and it's been very quiet.
Well, I mean, we had a discussion. I thought it was in the best interest of.
We need the fields. I'm not saying we don't need
Yeah.
the fields.
I mean,
But how we get there is the bigger question.
Well, I
And,
thought.
You know, you have two pockets of tax dollars. You know, you're taking money out of your left pocket and putting it in your right pocket. The town is still funding it, but I want to make sure we're getting there in the cheapest way.
Well, that's what I was hoping for, and again, I said this before, that it was, to me, it was an opportunity not to take that money out of the educational budget, even though, yes, we're all taxpayers, it's all coming from our pockets. It doesn't matter one pocket or the other, it's all coming from the same pocket. What it's not doing, when we do have shared services in this way, that we don't owe anything, is that we maintain that money in our educational budget, and it will go for students and curriculum and instruction and other things. So I was hoping that it was the right thing to do. If it turns out it is not, then it'll be I will be accountable for that, and I will speak to that in the future. I hope it is not. Sometimes we don't know if it's a right or wrong decision until after the fact, but it seemed to me all the ingredients of having been a right decision. And the board did vote on it, so for the most part, everyone agreed. Okay.
Where are the certification of the results?
I beg your pardon?
Where are the certification of the results from the election? Usually the certification numbers are discussed at the December meeting.
Sorry, I didn't bring them. I don't know if we have the certification results at all.
I don't have that to my memory right now. I'd have to go back and check.
I assure you we will have it in the January meeting. I apologize. It's not going to change any.
Right, but every year.
I know. My first year, rookie mistake, Mr. Fabiano, I apologize.
Madam, it may have been sent to the new candidates elected to the board through email from the district. I have to go back and check, though.
Well, it hasn't been announced, and I will take that responsibility as well.
What are
Anything
the updates
else?
to the traffic pattern at the high school?
I don't know if, would anyone like to speak to that? Do you have anything to say about that? We have not resolved that issue yet, okay?
In regards to the quarantining, I know there was another resident that spoke about it. We're currently, if you have a sibling who's if there's a child that goes out and is on quarantine, you have a sibling, the sibling's time doesn't start until after the first sibling who was tested positive can go back. I'm wondering why we're not moving to what other towns are doing. If you can self-isolate at home, why the second sibling, or third for that matter, cannot follow the same time frame as the first quarantined.
Dr. Lehman, you did touch upon that, well, not the second sibling, but if you could be brief, because we did say we were following regulations.
Effectively, you have a second sibling that could be out 24 days minimum.
Correct. Yep, and that's currently our protocol. It's something that we're, open to revising in terms of, so our lead nurse was actually working with the county epidemiologist today, as well as the county health department. So she is in constant contact, and we're evaluating it. It's currently our protocol. It's something that, again, we speak about this probably multiple times a day, about what's our exit strategy. It's not something we're prepared to take a move on today, but it's something we're going to plan on doing in terms of reevaluating quarantine periods. I'm aware of a district in the area that recently, any in-district contact, quarantine-wise, if it's an in-district contact, it's a voluntary quarantine, and they're beginning to explore that. So there's a lot of different things that are going to be coming out, and I think we have an opportunity once we get through the holiday to take a look at what we can do in terms of trimming down and taking a look at our quarantine piece.
Right, but as all the schools around us are making updates, it's getting boring coming back and hearing, well, we're not doing that yet. We haven't evaluated that yet. This goes back to Dr. Alvick, and my expectation is we start to look at the districts around us that are surviving without having to take out kids for 24 days.
No, and point taken. Thank you.
Can you provide an update on Falcon Care with the site leader leaving, the assistant site leader out until March on leave? Is there any flux in that program without the leaders there?
Do you want to do it, or did you want to speak on it?
Mr. Gorski?
Certainly.
The most hierarchical position in that is the director, and we have a fantastic director who was hired by the Board of Education. She's immersed in the program, and we have meetings scheduled, Dr. Lehman, Ms. Shanley and I, with the director to go over new curriculum items, staffing concerns. We're hearing from parents about concerns about compensation and everything. We're also aware of the economics around with other school districts and other opportunities that these staff members have. There's a lot of turnover in private industry right now, and I don't want to say anything that goes to negotiations, but I think a lot of the concepts and issues that were brought up tonight will be addressed.
Back to the surplus number, 4.6, I know some carries over. We couldn't come up with 37,000 and 6,000 for software for the cafeterias?
Madam, the answer to that is no. Two separate funds. The one with the excess surplus figure is the general fund, and that would require a loss of CUSAC points and other demerits to transfer general fund cash over to the food service fund. Could something have been reserved in the food service fund for these equipment purchases? Certainly, but the issue of the delay in getting students through the lines and the POS system crashing is new. We also have a new director in the food service program who has identified this issue, brought it to our attention, and immediately went to BGT and was presented to the board tonight. So, hope that answered your question.
I think that'll be resolved very quickly as soon as we get all the definitive documents and numbers.
Last two questions. How many kids are on quarantine now?
Currently, right now, and what we're looking at quarantine-wise is lingering quarantines from students from last week's numbers and then the numbers that will be reported out tomorrow. We're right around 125 to 130. And again, it changes every probably hour. We have students that we're investigating and may or may not be positive.
Got it. Actually, I think that's it. I said two, but I'll give you back 20 seconds.
I was going to say, thank you.
Happy holidays.
Thank you for the 20 seconds. Anyone else, please?
Sarah Aziz, 3 Lancelot Drive. I would like to thank Mr. Pelori for shedding some light on the selection process for the interim superintendent at the meeting last month. I'm disappointed that the board chose to appoint an interim superintendent that lacked the recommendation of the county superintendent, Kyle Anderson. The county superintendent has a supervisory and regulatory role over the Board of Education. It is his responsibility to review the contracts of administrators and to make sure their compensation is reasonable given their credentials and experience. According to emails I obtained through the Oprah process, Mr. Anderson refused to recommend Ms. Shanley for this role and appeared to express concerns about the fact that she lacked a standard school administrator certificate. She's working on a provisional one, I understand that. She also lacks central office experience. The district responded that one person in their central office had the certificate but did not apply for this position. Mr. Anderson pointed out that he was aware that the district received several resumes from external candidates, but they were not interviewed in spite of the fact that Dr. Alvick had given more than the required 90 days notice. This is why this choice has the appearance of cronyism. There is absolutely no justification for the board's failure to interview external candidates for this important role. Furthermore, Ms. Shanley was misrepresented as Dr. Sherry Robin Shanley in 5 yearbooks. And what does it say about her leadership if it takes her 5 years to correct such a simple error? When the board promotes someone like this, it sends the message to our students and faculty that you can mislead the public about your credentials for years and still become the most powerful person in our school district. Ms. Shanley is getting paid more than Dory Alvick, who had a doctorate and many years of central office experience before she became superintendent. Ms. Shanley's contract includes a base salary of $195,000, which is part of a total compensation and benefit package valued at $254,000. The contract requires taxpayers to foot the bill for the training. She would need to get a permanent school administrator certificate and the doctorate she never had. It is no wonder the county superintendent refused to recommend her contract, and in an email dated on October 29th, Mr. Anderson recommended that the board hire another interim superintendent at its November 1st special board meeting. And instead of accepting his recommendation, the board canceled the meeting, which meant that Ms. Shanley was working without a signed interim superintendent contract for 9 days until it was finally approved by the state on November 10th. The students and taxpayers deserve better than this process. We deserve to have a highly qualified superintendent who can earn the recommendation of the county superintendent.
Okay, Mr. Gagliardi, please.
If you measure the quality of a board meeting by how often the board attorney speaks, I wouldn't be insulted. One thing that I wanted to address, there was never a time that Ms. Shanley was working without a contract. We followed the law, and she did not assume the office or its responsibilities until we got the letter from Trenton. As far as the communications, which you described, as I said, that aspect of it was highly unusual. That is the level of scrutiny of the county office involving that typo in the yearbook. We did present documentation that Ms. Shanley never held herself out as having a doctorate in terms of business cards, letterhead, et cetera, et cetera. The individual responsible for the yearbook submitted a certification that she made the error, was told to correct it, failed to correct it. I'm reminded of a joke when Lou Holtz was the coach at Notre Dame, saying that there are days when he thought if they found him walking across St. Mary's Lake, that headline the next day would be, Lou Holtz can't swim. So I'm imagining a scenario where if Ms. Shanley was, proofreading the yearbook instead of serving as the educational leader of the school, there would have been discussion about, why is this woman proofreading the yearbook? Shouldn't she be doing other things? Under the circumstances, at the end of the day, the county superintendent neither recommended that Trenton approve, nor recommended that Trenton disprove the hiring of someone who did not have the permanent certificate, but essentially left it up to Trenton. And the Commissioner of Education approved the hire, and only then did Ms. Shanley assume the responsibility that she holds today. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no one at the podium, I am going to assume there is no other speaker. I would like to have a voice vote on closing the motion.
Second.
Closing. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great.
I hope everybody understands.
That's
what I said
enough.
twice.
The
I hope everybody
the next,
understands what
I would like to, we are going to be going into closed session, and I would like to read the resolution. Be it resolved, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Township of Monroe hereby moves into closed session in accordance with the Sunshine Law, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, NJSA 10:4-6 through 10:4-21, to discuss the following subjects. Following subjects are harassment, intimidation, and bullying, an update on the authorized investigation from Porzio Compliance Services LLC, and the superintendent search update. We will probably be there minimum of a half hour, hopefully not more than 45 minutes, in which case, if the following closed session and action may be taken, the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public at such time as the need for confidentiality no longer exists. And when we go into the closed session regarding the superintendent, we are going to have to vote for a resolution to have the vice president as the secretary during that period.
So moved.
Okay? Second, Mr. Tofano. All right, thank you. We'll try to be back in a half hour to 45 minutes to latest. Thank you.
Mr. Gorski, I wasn't sure.
We have come out of closed session. We have no action to take at this time. And I would just like to let the people know that we have our next scheduled Board of Education meeting, which is January 3rd, 2022. That is what we call our reorganization meeting. At that time, we will welcome our newly elected board members, and I have been remiss since November from naming them individually. We will have Ghazala Bora. We will welcome also Katie Fabiano, and also Kate Ratner. So we welcome them. We are congratulate them for their win and victory in the election in November. And so January 3rd, they will be seated as new board members. And then there will be a vote for new president and new officials, and we will go from there. I thank everyone for the end of this calendar year and the opportunity to serve this community. On behalf of all the board members, we wish you a very, very happy holiday season. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Okay, thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.